Chapter 791. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. In the dark and dense forest, tall blood-colored trees danced like a group of demons. The team led by Chu Hen and Lung Lingyan moved forward at an extremely fast speed. Everyone followed closely behind Chu Hen, their expressions grim, not daring to relax at all. Boom! Bang! The blue Ran sword opened the way in front, like a swordfish in the deep sea. Like a hot knife through butter, wherever it went, it flattened the blood-colored trees and minced the vines and vegetation. Chu Hen was calm and collected, his eyes flashing with star-like wisdom. This strange forest had a strong restriction on wuxiu, but it was much easier for a pattern caster. From the beginning, Chu Hen had been thinking about the similarities between him and Li Xiu. The only reason was that there was a big gap between their cultivation bases. Attacking with Reiki energy was much easier than using true origin energy. Buzz, buzz, Chu Hen continuously injected Reiki energy into the blue Ran sword and controlled it from a distance. Under the attack of the blue Ran sword, branches and leaves flew everywhere, and debris splashed everywhere. A path was forcibly opened up. Many obstacles in front of him were cut in half at the waist, and their branches were cut off. The piercingly cold and powerful sword energy even left a deep ravine on the ground. However, at the same time that Chu Hen was continuously opening a path in front of him, the path behind him was quickly being blocked. Giant blood-colored trees rapidly closed in from both sides, spreading out and merging, blocking the path behind them. Everyone was running at full speed like a pair of scissors. The whole city was moving at top speed. If they were even a little slower, the danger behind them would all rush up. Lung Lingyan wanted to say something but stopped. The words were at the tip of her tongue, but she swallowed them back. She wanted to ask Chu Hen to increase his speed again, but when she thought about the pressure he was bearing at the moment, she decided not to increase the difficulty. After all, it was not easy for a person to control true origin energy and Reiki energy at the same time. Especially in a race against time like this, it was even more of a challenge. Senior brother Chu Hen. However, at this moment, Li Xiu's anxious voice suddenly rang in everyone's ears. Speak! Senior brother Shanzhen. I sense senior brother Shanzhen's aura. What? As soon as these words came out, everyone's heart skipped a beat, and a strong sense of pleasant surprise emerged. Where is he? Su Lang was the first to ask. Southwest, 5 kilometers away, but what? Li Xiu pursed her lips and said solemnly, there are a lot of blood trees around the area where senior single brother is. The energy density there is very high. I think they must be trapped. After hearing these words, the joy in everyone's heart immediately turned into great worry. What to do? Right now they were also in a very urgent situation. If they went to rescue Danjun and the others, it was very likely that there would be unexpected serious consequences. Follow closely. I'm going to speed up. Without any hesitation, Chu Hen's determined voice rang in everyone's ears. Lung Lingyan's eyes trembled slightly. To be honest, she did not wish for Chu Hen to take this risk, because Chu Hen was now the next sect leader of Mount Kunliu. The demon-slaying hall master, Wen Liang, had clearly instructed them to protect Chu Hen's safety if they encountered any danger. Looking at Chu Hen's determined back, it was not broad, but it revealed an extremely convincing sharpness and domineering aura. Everyone, follow closely. I'll be in charge of the path of retreat, Lung Lingyan said. However, since Lung Lingyan had already said so, everyone no longer hesitated. Powerful auras erupted from their bodies and flashed like shadows. Swoosh! The wind whistled, and the rapid airflow continuously stimulated everyone's eardrums. The extreme speed caused everyone to be unable to see the scene in front of them clearly. The shadows of the trees on both sides swished behind them. In just a few blinks of an eye, everyone arrived at the area that Li Xiu had mentioned. What appeared before everyone was a huge bird's nest, with closely arranged blood trees that soared into the sky. They were more than 300 zhang tall layers of intertwining vines spread out and wrapped around the tree. There were 3 layers on the inside and 3 layers on the outside, binding the tree tightly. Looking at the bird's nest in front of them, Su Lang, Ling Tao, and the others could not help but swallow their saliva. They would not be able to break through this barrier even if they chopped at it for 3 days. "Danzhen is inside?" Chu Hen made the final confirmation. "Yes," Li Xiu affirmed. Swoosh. As soon as he finished speaking, a vast and mighty surge of Reiki energy gushed out of Chu Hen's body like a surging torrent. Under Chu Hen's control, streaks of golden light patterns and airwaves rapidly intertwined on the blue sky sword. In an instant, the blue sky sword shone brightly, displaying an extremely powerful and unparalleled sharpness. The forest was immediately filled with dazzling light beams. An extremely powerful sword aura caused even the heavens and earth to become restless. This sword was not purely made of Reiki energy. Instead, it was a combination of Reiki energy and true origin energy. Slash. Buzz. Buzz. It was done in one go, and its aura was astonishing. The blue sky sword was wrapped in a 100-meter-long sword shadow as it slashed down towards the blood tree bird's nest ahead. Boom. Bang. All sorts of intense explosions rang out. Under the astonished gazes of the people of Mount Kunlia Mountain, a huge hole that was more than 100 feet wide was constantly expanding, rapidly revealing itself. A terrifying energy wave spread out in all directions. The huge blood tree bird cage, that was like an iron wall, was forcefully blasted open, leaving a wide gap. "Let's go." Chu Hen directly entered the bird's nest, and the others hurriedly followed. The internal structure of the bird's nest was constantly being battered by the blue sky sword's energy. The crisscrossing branches and vines wantonly swayed like venomous snakes. Chu Hen cut his way through all the obstacles without even turning his head. He knew that he did not need to worry about what would happen next. He believed that Lung Lingyan would be able to handle everything. Immediately after, a thick layer of golden light screen suddenly appeared inside the bird's nest. This light screen was one side of a sphere. The sphere was placed in the middle of the bird's nest, like a huge egg. However, in reality, this sphere was a defensive barrier. In other words, the people inside were trapped here and could only temporarily protect their lives with the defensive barrier. Quickly, Junior Sister Xiu, immediately activate the signal and inform Senior Brother Danjun to remove the defensive barrier. Su Lang hurriedly said. Li Xiu had a troubled expression. "No, there's not enough time. When they remove the barrier, we'll all be trapped here. We can't let Senior Brother Chu Hen take this risk." The others were also in a difficult position. However, in the next second, Chu Hen had already rushed to the front of the defensive barrier. "Since there's no time to remove it, I'll just destroy it." "What?" Everyone jumped in fright at Chu Hen's idea. No matter what, this barrier was a defensive barrier that had blocked the attacks of such a large number of blood trees. If they were to forcefully destroy it, it would be faster to just notify them to remove it. Boom! Without any explanation, Chu Hen's body surged with the energy of the stars. He stretched out his left hand, and the beautiful pattern of the Big Dipper floated on his palm. Among the 7 stars in the pattern, 4 of them were glowing brightly. An extremely restless energy gathered in his palm. It was as though Chu Hen was in control of the stars and could destroy mountains and rivers. Everyone's hearts trembled as their eyes shone with excitement. 4-star soul critical strike. Bang! A loud bang that was comparable to an eruption of a mountain rang out. Chu Hen's palm directly pressed on the huge spherical defensive barrier. The terrifying impact caused the earth, rivers, and mountains to explode. Chapter 792. 4-star soul critical strike. Bang! The violent impact shook the earth and exploded at a single point. It was only a split second of contact, but the solid defensive barrier was like a fragile eggshell, instantly shattering into pieces. It was so damn terrifying. The disciples of Mount Kunlun couldn't help but shrink their neck. This was the second time they saw Chu Hen use this move. At such a close distance, they could feel the fierceness of the destructive power. The powerful impact swept in all directions with an earth-shattering momentum. The surrounding blood trees and vines were instantly crushed as if they were washed away by a torrent. A huge hole was created in the cage that looked like a bird's nest. At the same time, under the impact of the violent shockwave, panicked figures quickly flashed out from within the defensive barrier. F***CK, what's going on? Retreat quickly. With a cursory glance, there were more than a dozen figures. Danzhen, Qi-Ting, Lu Qi. Follow us and leave immediately. The familiar and resolute voice caused Na Xing's heart to tremble. Yes, Chu Hen. Haha. Qi-Ting's coarse laughter sounded. Danzhen, who had a face of astonishment, also quickly discovered Lung Lingyan's group behind Chu Hen. She immediately lifted her eyelids and shouted towards another group of people. Junior Marshal Sister Chinro, they're on our side, follow us closely. Okay. The other party responded quickly. Immediately, the dozen figures calmed themselves down and joined the team of Mount Kunlun, quickly leaving this place. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. From the beginning to the end, he didn't stop for even half a step. Breaking through the blood tree cage and shattering the defensive barrier in one go, Chu Hen's speed didn't change at all. The decisiveness of his attack made the people behind him exclaim in surprise. Swish, 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 the blue Ran sword merged with Reiki energy to open the way in front, and the others followed closely behind. They rushed out of the blood tree's encirclement in a race against time. However, compared to before, the team was almost twice as large. Everyone knew the current situation, so no one spoke first. Boom! Like a huge turbulence when a flood broke through a dam, a dazzling green sword pierced through the jungle. The edge of the lush jungle seemed to have been pierced through a huge hole. Following that, numerous young figures flew out one after another. When they left the blood-red forest behind them, it was as if they had stepped out of the gates of hell, and a great sense of relief surged. He was out. Xiao. The blue Ran sword drew an arc in the void, then turned around and steadily fell into Chu Hen's palm. Then, Chu Hen's figure moved. He flew down and landed on a stone platform in the area below. The others also landed by Chu Hen's side. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. They had finally made it out of the blood tree forest. Is everyone okay? Senior brother Shanzhen, I've finally found you. Why are there only 3 of you? Where are the others? Chu Hen also looked at Shanzhen inquiringly. The first group to search for the flying celestial temple master included Shanzhen, Qi-Ting, Lu Qi, Qin Qi, Shu Hua Haozi, Mu Feng, and the Thousand Crane Sect master, Qi Zhang. In comparison, these people's ability to survive in the blood tree forest was better than Shanzhen's group. Shanzhen shook his head helplessly. We got separated. Oh? Where did you get separated? Before coming here, we were ambushed by the Fong clan. In the chaotic battle, the 3 of us ended up here, Shanzhen sighed. She seemed very ashamed. The Fong clan? Chu Hen couldn't help but narrow his eyes. He was more or less surprised by this. The Fong clan and Mount Kunlun did not have a huge grudge against each other. The only time they had a conflict was when they were fighting for the Heaven and Earth black-yellow token at the wind-soaring origin. At that time, the Fong clan's expert and a man from the Heaven Serpent clan had joined forces to fight against Mount Kunlun's group. In the end, the man was killed by Chu Hen, and even his weapon, the Death Scythe, was taken away. Then, Haozi's arrival caused the man from the Heaven Serpent clan to flee resentfully. It was likely that the Fong clan harbored hatred for the man's death. It was not surprising that they would secretly attack the people from Mount Kunlun when they met in the ancient desolate heaven domain. Did you find the flying celestial temple master? Lung Lingyan asked. This was the most important matter at the moment. Shanzhen still shook her head. We didn't find the flying celestial temple master. However, before we split up, Nongqi sensed his aura. What? Everyone's heart lit up. Shan Zhen continued to say, according to Nongqi, the flying celestial temple master's whereabouts are uncertain, and there's no pattern to his movements. Moreover, there's always another unfamiliar aura near the flying celestial temple master. Another aura? Everyone looked at each other. Su Lang asked, Liao Qixio? Liao Qixio, one of the leaders of the blood-refining sect, had disappeared with Qi Hanyu. If there was someone else around the other party, it was most likely Liao Qixio. However, Shan Zhen's answer immediately denied everyone's guess. Nongqi definitely said that person isn't Liao Qixio. Not Liao Qixio? Surprise surged into everyone's heart once again. What was going on? Could it be that the flying celestial temple master was entangled by a powerful enemy again? Where was Liao Qixio? The development of the matter seemed to be getting more and more confusing. Initially, they thought they would be able to find out about the flying celestial temple master once they found Shan Zhen. They did not expect things to become more and more chaotic. Speaking till here, Chu Hen could not help but sink into contemplation. The ancient desolate heaven domain was really too chaotic. They did not find the flying celestial temple master, and instead, Mu Feng, Haozi and the others were separated. Moreover, the matter at Innocence Valley had always been on Chu Hen's mind. How was Yi Yao now? Whether she was safe by Shintu Etienne's side were all important matters that Chu Hen needed to solve. Just as everyone was silent, a petite young woman walked over. This should be Ling Lingyan, senior sister Ling, from the Void Palace, right? I've heard of your name for a long time. Now that I've met you today, you're indeed captivating. Everyone from Mount Kunliu was startled. Only then did they realize that Shan Zhen and the others were not the only ones who had been rescued. Following that, the young woman looked at Chu Hen and said, Senior brother, thank you for saving us just now. However, senior brother, are you Nangong Qian, senior brother Nangong from the demon-slaying palace? You don't seem to be the same as the rumors. Nangong Qian? Everyone from Mount Kunliu revealed disdainful expressions when they heard these three words. Without waiting for anyone to speak, Shan Zhen hurriedly introduced, Junior sister Qinro, you're mistaken. This is junior brother Chu Hen from our soaring celestial palace. Shan Zhen paused for a moment before she said to the people from Mount Kunliu, this is junior sister Qinro from the nation of Conquering Cloud. We met her in the Blood Tree Forest. At that time, we were attacked by the blood tree vines, so we joined forces and formed a defensive barrier together, the nation of Conquering Cloud. Everyone else did not think much of these three words. However, Chu Hen could not help but be stunned inwardly. This world was really small. Oh, so it's not senior brother Nangong. I'm sorry, Qinro apologized. Chu Hen smiled and replied calmly, it's all right. One of the Mount Kunliu disciples asked curiously, what are you people from the nation of Conquering Cloud doing here? This. Qinro seemed to be troubled. If it's difficult, then forget it. I'm just asking casually. That's not it. Qinro was very lively, and her words were appropriate. She immediately replied, our mission is to retrieve our nation's treasure, the Heaven's Blade, so it was like that. Chu Hen started to have a headache. Heaven's Blade? Could it be the sacred blade used by the commander-in-chief of the nation of Conquering Cloud's 3 armies, General Bailey Qi? Shan Zhen's eyes lit up. Bailey Qi's name had been recorded in the history of the victorious East State. Anyone with a bit of knowledge would know of his deeds. Qinro confirmed, that's right, it's that Heaven's Blade. Then did you guys find it? Shan Zhen asked again. Not yet. Qinro pouted angrily. When we rushed to the Demon Spirit Mountain Gorge, the Heaven's Blade was already gone. Later on, we met people from the Heaven Dynasty who were also going to retrieve the Draining God Spear. From them, we found out that the Heaven's Blade and Draining God Spear were both stolen by a bad boy. If I catch that bad boy, I'll definitely show him how powerful I am. The speaker didn't mean it, but the listener thought it. The Heaven's Blade and the Draining God Spear were both famous treasures on the Saint Weapon ranking. Whether it was the nation of conquering cloud or the Heaven dynasty, they wouldn't let them go so easily. Chu Hen stood at the side silently. He did not know what to do in his heart. It was as if he was a thief, showing an indifferent expression. Chun Ro was also quite pretty and cute. A few disciples of Mount Kunliu also helped her scold the bad boy who stole the Heaven's blade. Just as Chu Hen was gnashing his teeth in anger, Lung Lingyan said, "Let's not talk anymore. Let's think about what we should do next." This sentence pulled everyone back to the current situation. Where are we? I don't know, it should be the center of the Blood Tree Forest. Everyone be careful. Everyone had seen the fearsomeness of the Blood Tree Forest. Now that they were in the center, it was most likely filled with danger. As far as the eye could see, the vast plains in front of them were filled with ancient stone platforms. The stone platforms weren't very regular. Some were cylindrical, some were square, and some were even rhombus-shaped. Almost every few hundred meters, there would be a stone platform. From afar, they looked like simple but majestic sculptures. Let's go inside and take a look. Maybe Fu Qin, Haozi, and the others will be there, Dan Zhen suggested. No one rejected this suggestion. After all, the hellish Blood Tree Forest was right behind them. Without Chu Hen leading the way, it would be very difficult to go back. Everyone, be careful, Lung Lingyan said softly. She looked at Chu Hen meaningfully. Beneath her calm eyes, there was a faint trace of anxiety. Whoosh! Soon after, Mount Kunliu and the nation of Conquering Clouds group headed deeper into the forest. Compared to the danger lurking in the Blood Tree Forest, the center was clearly much more peaceful. Ancient stone platforms rose and fell. Behind them, some of the stone platforms even had giant statues of ferocious beasts on them. These lifelike statues were the work of the gods. Every single one of them was extremely realistic, be it in terms of appearance or charm. Suddenly, 4 dazzling pillars of light appeared in front of Chu Hen and the others. 4 pillars of light. One was scorching hot, one was as cold as frost, one was as black as ink, and one was as pure and holy as radiance. The 4 pillars of light stood on a huge platform that was as wide as a plaza. They pierced through the clouds and looked like they could hold up the heavens. Behind the 4 pillars of light was a giant door. The giant door was hundreds of meters tall. In the middle was the main door, and on the left and right were secondary doors. Chapter 793. Looking at the 4 pillars of light that pierced through the starry river, everyone's faces were a little moved. One was as hot as fire, one was as cold as frost, one was as black as ink, and one was as pure as light. However, the most eye-catching thing was the majestic gate behind the 4 pillars of light. The crystal pillar-like stone gate stood upright, as mysterious and imposing as a god. At the center of the stone gate there were 3 imposing words. Immortal Prying Platform. This is? Chu Hen's eyes narrowed. Immortal Prying Platform? This was a rather unique name. Even though there was the word prying in it, it didn't sound like a thief at all. Instead, it was rather thought-provoking. At this moment, many people had already gathered on the vast immortal prying platform. There were also a few people standing guard on the surrounding stone platforms. Looks like we're not the first ones to arrive here, Lung Lingyan said faintly. Dan Zhen began to search the crowd to see if there were any companions that got separated from them. In the past, when Dan Zhen was at Mount Kunlu, he had almost 0 failure rate when he went out on a mission. He was able to complete it perfectly every time. However, the mission to find the flying immortal palace master this time was a huge blow to him. Therefore, Dan Zhen desperately wanted to make up for it. But then again, for the current ancient desolate heaven domain, Shan Zhen's strength was limited to this. After all, there were all sorts of monstrous geniuses gathered here. How many people could remain undefeated in a battle between the strong? Just when Chu Hen was about to find a place to stop and understand the situation, a young man from the country of Yu Yun's group suddenly exclaimed, "Look, it's senior sister Yu Man." "Where?" Chen Ro immediately asked. The third stone platform on the left of the immortal prying platform. 1, 2, 3. It's really her. That's great. Chen Ro's eyes lit up. She turned around and said, Senior Sister Ling, Senior Brother Shanjun, and Senior Brother Chu Hen, come with us. Dan Zhen looked over in surprise, then asked with uncertainty, You man? Could it be Sky Bamboo Peak's Lin Yu man? That's right. It's her. Chen Ro was in high spirits. Her eyes were filled with joy. It could be seen that she admired and liked Lin Yuman very much. The name Lin Yuman was quite famous in the Eastern Victory region. Most importantly, the country of Conquering Cloud was backed by the so-called Sky Bamboo Peak. The Sky Bamboo Peak was one of the top 10 superpowers in the Eastern Victory state. That's great. I want to have the opportunity to get to know Lin Yuman. However, Dan Zhen was just about to agree when Ling Lingyan refused. There's no need for that. Since you've met up with Sky Bamboo Peak's team, there's no need for us to stay together anymore. We still have other matters to attend to, so let's split up here. Ling Lingyan's decision surprised many people. But since she did this, she must have her reasons. Dan Zhen didn't say anything more and just nodded at Chen Ro to express her apology. Chen Ro didn't seem to give up and continued, Senior Sister Ling, you've helped us so much we haven't properly thanked you yet. It's nothing, it's just along the way. Ling Lingyan insisted. As for Chu Hen, he didn't say anything. But seeing Ling Lingyan's determined look, Chen Ro could only bid farewell and leave. Soon after, Chu Hen and his team randomly found an empty stone platform and stopped. There are many experts hidden nearby. Chu Hen muttered to himself. He could vaguely sense that there were a few powerful and dangerous auras hidden in the surrounding area. Meanwhile, everyone was quietly observing the situation, their expressions and gazes filled with vigilance towards others. It seemed that there would be some unknown changes happening in this place. Senior Sister Lingyan, why don't we meet up with Sky Bamboo Peak's team? A disciple from Mount Kunliu asked in confusion. Given the current situation, since Sky Bamboo Peak's team had arrived a long time ago, they would most likely know a thing or two about the situation here. They could obtain some useful information from them. After all, if they were to ask others, no one would be willing to answer them. Moreover, there were many experts gathered here. If they could form a temporary alliance with Sky Bamboo Peak, it might not be a bad thing. With Ling Lingyan's calm mind, it was impossible for her not to have thought of this. It's nothing. We just need to take care of ourselves. Our main goal is to find the flying immortal temple master. We don't care about anything else. Ling Lingyan's red lips parted slightly, and her tone was indifferent as she gave an unconvincing reason. The others could not help but look at Chu Hen. However, Chu Hen seemed to ignore this matter even more. He stood at the edge of the stone platform, his eyes fixed on the 4 pillars of light on the immortal prying platform. The 4 pillars of light were like divine rainbows, gathering the vast spiritual energy of heaven and earth. The majestic stone door at the back was even more majestic, and the 4 pillars of light were like a barrier guarding the stone door at the back. The space near the 4 pillars of light was extremely unstable, as if a terrifying destructive restriction would be triggered as long as someone approached. From the cautious expressions of the surrounding people, it was not difficult to tell that someone had suffered a loss not long ago. At this moment, a few agile sounds of wind breaking caught the attention of the people from Mount Kunliu. Then, more than 10 figures flashed over and landed on the same stone platform. Lingyan, aren't you going to greet an old friend? The indifferent voice had a hint of gentleness. The person who spoke was a woman with long hair and a snow-white dress. She was dignified, beautiful, and elegant. She was just like her name, Lin Yuman. Old friend? Senior Sister Yuman, you've known Senior Sister Lingyan for a long time? Chen Ro, who was following behind Lin Yuman, had a surprised expression on her face. Not only Chen Ro, but the people from the nation of Conquering Cloud and Mount Kunliu were also shocked. Since Lin Yuman and Ling Lingyan knew each other, she should have gone over just now. Could it be that they were only friends in name? Their real relationship was not good? Yes. Lin Yumin smiled faintly and said, Ling Yan and I used to be very good sisters. We played together since we were young, and even slept on the same bed. So, senior sister Ling is also from the nation of Conquering Cloud. Yes, that's right. Whoosh. The moment these words were spoken, both sides were in an uproar. Chen Ro was so shocked that her mouth was agape. She found this unbelievable. Lung Lingyan smiled helplessly. There's no need to tell everyone about our past. Miss Lung was one of the top geniuses in the nation of Conquering Cloud. Unfortunately, she lost to senior sister Yuman by a single move during the entrance examination to Heavenly Bamboo Peak. That was why she had no choice but to leave the nation of Conquering Cloud and join Mount Kunli. A slightly ear-piercing voice caused the originally warm atmosphere to become a lot more awkward. The one who spoke was a young man standing to the left of Lin Yuman. It had to be said that the men and women of Heavenly Bamboo Peak were all outstanding in terms of appearance and temperament. However, there was a hint of frivolity mixed in between his elegant brows. A single sentence revealed the reason behind this. Who would have thought that Lung Lingyan and Lin Yuman had such an old history? However, Lung Lingyan was extremely calm. Even her eyes did not waver. Instead, it was a hot-tempered disciple from Mount Kunliu who replied unhappily. What do you mean by that? Could it be that our Mount Kunliu is inferior to your Heavenly Bamboo Peak? Haha, junior brother, don't be so agitated. Whether it's inferior or not, it's not up to me to decide. However, I'm very happy that someone from our nation of Conquering Cloud has become the first disciple of Mount Kunliu's Void Temple Master. The people from Mount Kunliu were instantly enraged. A person who could not even enter Heavenly Bamboo Peak was able to become the chief disciple of Void Temple Master. Wasn't this clearly mocking Mount Kunliu for specially taking in the leftovers from Heavenly Bamboo Peak? Making such sarcastic remarks in front of so many people was really too much. Lung Lingyan was not angry. She smiled calmly and said, Yuman, don't tell me you came here just to expose me? Lin Yuman also looked at the young man beside her with a hint of anger. Senior brother Yunhee, please be quiet. The other party smiled faintly and restrained himself a little. The people from Mount Kunliu all had a bellyful of anger. However, because of Lung Lingyan, they could not vent their anger. Lingyan, long time no see. Let's have a good chat. Lin Yuman said. Next time. I still have an urgent mission. What mission? Can I be of any help? Lung Lingyan hesitated for a moment before she said, Have you seen our soaring celestial temple master, Chi Hanyu? The soaring celestial temple master is missing? It can't be considered as missing. We just temporarily lost contact with her. Lin Yuman shook her head, indicating that there was nothing she could do. At this time, Yunhee turned to Chen Ro and said, By the way, junior sister Chen Ro, I forgot to ask you, did you retrieve the Heaven Karma Saber? The people from Heavenly Bamboo Peak also looked at her inquisitively. Chen Ro, naturally, shook her head. She told them about her encounter with the people from Heaven Unified Dynasty and how she learned from them that the Heaven Karma Saber had been taken away by a mysterious person. That person is really bold. He even dared to snatch the treasure that our Heavenly Bamboo Peak bestowed to the nation of Conquering Cloud. I must make him regret his actions. Yunhee snorted coldly and said sternly. However, as soon as he finished speaking, an indifferent voice suddenly rang in everyone's ears. Chapter 794. I'm sorry, everyone. The Tianai saber is in my hands. His indifferent voice was not loud at all, but it was especially deafening when it reached everyone's ears. The people of Sky Bamboo Peak, Mount Kunliu, and country of Conquering Cloud were all shocked. Their gazes immediately fell on the young figure at the side. From the beginning to the end, Chu Hen had not said a word. Now that he opened his mouth, he became the focus. Chu Hen, are you joking? Danjun frowned, her eyes full of suspicion. Chu Hen spread out his hands and shrugged. Do I look like someone who likes to joke? The entire stone platform was in an uproar again. Chin Ro's group of people from Conquering Cloud looked at each other, while those from Mount Kunliu felt a little embarrassed. The person being called a thief was Chu Hen. This was 2F** king embarrassing, ha 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 ha. After a short moment of shock, Sky Bamboo Peaks Yun he sneered. I was wondering why some people didn't dare to go over when they saw our people from Sky Bamboo Peak over there. Turns out that they have a guilty conscience. Interesting, interesting. The people from Mount Kunliu were so angry that their teeth itched. However, Chu Hen suddenly appeared and admitted it. Wasn't this clearly embarrassing them? Facing Yun He's mockery, Chu Hen was not angry. He just laughed it off and glanced at Lung Lingyan from the corner of his eye. He saw that the latter had a complicated expression on her face. She frowned slightly and remained silent. Chu Hen could basically confirm that Lung Lingyan already knew that he was the one who took the Tianai saber. And the reason why Lung Lingyan did not look for Lin Yuman was also because of Chu Hen. Lung Lingyan grew up in country of Conquering Cloud, so she naturally knew about the Tianai saber. During the battle with the blood refining hall, Lung Lingyan felt that the holy saber Chu Hen used was somewhat familiar. Then, she heard from Chen Ro that the Tianai saber and the dripping spirit spear had been snatched by an unknown bad boy. Lung Lingyan confirmed that it was Chu Hen's doing. However, Chu Hen hadn't mentioned this before, and Lung Lingyan had most likely guessed that he wasn't willing to return the Tianai saber. Therefore, when she encountered Lin Yuman and the others from the Bamboo Peak, Lung Lingyan chose to avoid any awkwardness. But who would have thought that at this time, Chu Hen would actually admit it himself. Looks like I have overestimated your Mount Kunliu. Yun He sneered frivolously. He then raised his right hand and smiled, hand it over. However, Chu Hen remained indifferent as he stared at the other party's outstretched arm. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly as he said, I said that the Tianai saber is with me, but I never said that I would return it to you. What? Shocking words. The group from Mount Kunliu Mountain looked at Chu Hen in astonishment. There was really no one else who could be this willful. What do you mean? Are you messing with us? Yun He's voice lowered. I really didn't. Chu Hen raised his brows slightly and looked straight at the other party without any hesitation. In fact, I've been considering whether to return the Tianai saber to the country of Conquering Cloud. However, after seeing you, I changed my mind. Resolute and domineering. Everyone was taken aback. Yun He was instantly enraged. He could clearly see the deep disdain in Chu Hen's eyes. How could he tolerate such a disdainful look coming from a nobody? You're courting death. A chill surged from Yun He's body. In the next instant, Su Lang, Ling Tao and the rest of the disciples of Mount Kuan-Lu all took out their blades and swords and guarded Chu Hen's two sides. Impudent! Try and touch him if you dare. Swords were drawn and a fight could break out at any moment. The actions of Su Lang and the others stunned Danjun. She didn't ask any questions and hurriedly stepped forward to mediate. Everyone, don't be rash. Let's talk things out. Danjun was a person who cared about the bigger picture. Mount Kunliu and Sky Bamboo Peak would not be able to gain any advantage in a fight. Furthermore, there was the country of Conquering Cloud nearby, so they had no advantage at all. Moreover, there were people from various factions hiding nearby. It was definitely not wise to fight now. Yun He stared coldly at Chu Hen and said, If you don't hand over the Tianai saber today, I'm afraid you won't be able to leave. Come and take it if you can. Chu Hen was still calm and composed. Who do you think you are? You think you're fit to be so arrogant in front of me? Even if Nangong Ku was here, he would still have to show me some respect. Before Chu Hen could reply, Su Lang, who was behind him, laughed coldly and shook his head disdainfully. That's a pity. Nangong Ku has already been killed by Junior Chu Hen's spear. What? Rumble. The moment he said this, the group of people opposite him turned pale with fright. Especially Danjun, who felt as if his mind had been struck by lightning. His face was filled with disbelief. Was this for real? Nangong-ku had been killed by Chu Hen? The people from Mount Kunliu would not joke about something like this. Danjun could not help but look at Lung Lingyan. The latter's extremely calm expression had already explained everything. Shock. No wonder Lung Lingyan had been standing at the side without saying a word. How many days had they been away? Such a huge incident had already happened at Mount Kunliu? Quite a bit of astonishment also surged onto Lin Yuman's face from the heavenly bamboo peak. She couldn't help but pay more attention to Chu Hen's expression. You killed Nangong-ku? Yunhee finally lost his composure and stared fixedly at Chu Hen. Who exactly are you? He's a despicable and shameless person. Suddenly, along with a roar filled with murderous intent, a piercingly cold sword ray that spanned hundreds of meters suddenly whizzed towards them. The sword's momentum was like lightning, piercing through the sky. Everyone's heart skipped a beat as they scattered and retreated in different directions. Boom! The rainbow sword fell, and the entire stone platform was directly split into two. Rubble flew everywhere, and a huge chasm split open in the middle. The chasm extended all the way downwards, and a mighty shockwave spread out in all directions. The power of this sword was meant to take lives. The sudden attack immediately enraged the people of Mount Kunliu, country of conquering cloud, and sky bamboo peak. The people sitting on other nearby stone platforms also focused their attention on the scene. It's the people of Heaven Unified Dynasty. Exine Gubrat, are you crazy? High up in the sky, a fierce young figure with an awe-inspiring aura stood. The man held a sword in his hand, and the inner energy around his body surged. His long hair and clothes fluttered restlessly, and his cold smile revealed traces of ruthlessness. Enemies really meet on a narrow road. The man ignored the curses of the people from Sky Bamboo Peak and pointed his sword at Chu Hen in front of him. I told you to run away the other day, but today you've delivered yourself to me. Everyone could not help but be stunned. Chapter 795. Just as Chu Hen was about to clash with Sky Bamboo Peak's Yunhee, the Heaven Dynasty interfered. On the immortal prying platform, the four pillars of light emitted a peerless aura. The people hiding on the surrounding stone platforms couldn't help but look over with interest. Spectators never complained about things getting bigger. In particular, the battles and confrontations between these major forces and sects were even more delightful to watch. Piercingly cold airwaves spread out in all directions. On a square stone platform to the left of the immortal prying platform stood a few figures with extraordinary auras. Junior sister Bai Nian. Is that the person who took the draining spirit spear? The one who spoke was a handsome young man dressed in a jade robe. He emitted the aura of a noble. A young woman next to him subconsciously clenched her fists as panic appeared in her eyes. Yes, senior brother Xiaomang. You seem a little nervous? The man with the noble aura asked with an excited expression. Bai Nian gritted her teeth as the scene in the Demon Spirit Canyon surfaced in her mind. At that time, she and Xian Gu had launched a high-speed pursuit of Chu Hen, and in the end, they had almost lost their lives under the chaotic sword-flying ambush. For some reason, Bai Nian felt an indescribable sense of fear when she saw Chu Hen. However, Bai Nian quickly regained her composure. How could it be? With senior brother Xiaomang here, we can definitely take back the draining spirit spear today. The young man smiled as he rubbed his chin and said meaningfully, That's not necessarily true. Many extraordinary people came today. Whoosh! The cold wind howled in all directions. The Heaven Dynasty's Xen Gu held a sharp sword in his hand and coldly looked at them. Traces of evil qi surged in his body. The people of Mount Kunliu secretly frowned. They hadn't even finished discussing the matter of the Tianai saber with Sky Bamboo Peak, and now the people from the Heaven Dynasty came looking for them. This trouble was getting bigger and bigger. Senior Sister Lingyan, What do we do now? Su Lang asked Lung Lingyan behind him. The latter slightly frowned and glanced at Lin Yuman from Sky Bamboo Peak. She was still calm and seemed to have no intention of getting involved, adapt to the situation. As the chief disciple of the Void Temple Master, Lung Lingyan's mind had always been calm and steady. Even in the previous battle with the Blood Refining Hall, she never panicked in the face of life and death. Based on the current situation, it was not to the point where they had to retreat. Dan Zhen, Qi Ting, and Lu Qi were stupefied. The three of them seemed to still be stunned by the shocking news of Chu Hen killing Nangong Qian with a single spear strike. Before this matter was cleared up, the Heavenly Bamboo Peak and Heaven Imperial Dynasty had come to cause trouble for Chu Hen. He could not keep up with the rhythm at all. However, in the face of the menacing Xian Gu, Chu Hen was quite calm. "What advice do you have for me?" Chu Hen smiled indifferently. "Humph." Xian Gu sneered, then his murderous intent rose. Without saying anything, he raised his sword and attacked Chu Hen. "I want your life." A clear, murderous intent surged down like a cold current. Last time in the Demon Spirit Canyon, not only did Chu Hen escape from Xian Gu's eyes, but he also toyed with the other party. Today, there was no need to waste time talking. Nine Heavens soared cry. Screech, accompanied by the cry of a crane that soared to the nine heavens, a monstrous wave of air spread out from Xian Chihuang's body. His sword was pointed at Chu Hen, and its momentum was like the wind. A layer of bright sword wave caused the space to fluctuate, and on both sides of the sword, a pair of white light wings rapidly unfolded from afar. It looked like a divine bird flying through the sky, unstoppable. "Today, your luck is not as good as last time." In an instant, the holy sword shrouded in light wings slashed through the sky like a divine blade, going straight for Chu Hen's body. However, Chu Hen's eyelids lifted slightly, and he unhurriedly stretched out his left arm. A dazzling starlight surged down. Bang! The surrounding space violently shook, and a circle of mighty Zhen Yuan Qi dissipated vertically. Everyone's pupils trembled. They saw that Chu Hen had actually blocked Xian Gu's sword with his bare hands. The holy sword shrouded in light wings steadily stopped about 10 centimeters away from Chu Hen's palm. The surging silver starlight was like an iron wall, making it difficult for the opponent's attack to advance even an inch. Xian Gu was also shocked. What was going on? The last time they fought, Chu Hen's strength was far from this level. Buzz buzz. Not waiting for Xian Gu to react, the silver starlight in the center of Chu Hen's palm rapidly rotated. Along with the slightly distorted space, a loud boom sound rang out, and a terrifying hidden force swept over like the undercurrent of the deep sea. Bang! The sword light wings that covered Xian Gu's sword were directly shattered, and the powerful impact surged out with a crushing force. Xian Gu's body trembled, and as the blood in his body churned, his entire arm was numb. Looks like you have to go back and practice more." Together with Chu Hen's frivolous tone, Xian Gu's pupils shrank again. Bang! A heavy kick landed squarely on the opponent's chest. Light patterns splashed, and ripples spread out. Like a sandbag, Xian Gu fell down. Boom! He smashed fiercely on the square of the Immortals' viewing platform, and the stone bricks cracked. The powerful impact dragged Xian Gu's body all the way back, and a ravine 7 to 8 meters wide was rapidly dragged out. Just as Xian Gu was about to hit the 4 light pillars at the back of the Immortals' viewing platform, the ground shook, and a circle of surging soft force spread out from Xian Gu's body like a wave. Xian Gu abruptly stopped in his tracks. Behind him, a young man who exuded the aura of nobility was pressing against Xian Gu's back with one hand. Even though his movements were as light as a feather, it was still extremely powerful. Hua! It's Xiao Meng! When did he come? I don't know, but the people from Mount Kunliu are going to have fun. Xiao Meng's appearance could not help but cause a low commotion. Lin Yuman of Heavenly Bamboo Peak had a faint look of surprise in her eyes, and Yun-hee, who was beside her, also laughed coldly. Looks like we don't have to do anything, someone will help us get back the Tianai saber." Hearing this, Chen Ro of Yu-yun, who was standing behind them, felt a little awkward. Even though it was true that Chu Hen had the Tianai saber, but previously in the Blood Tree Forest, they could only escape with their lives because of Chu Hen's help. Logically speaking, now that Mount Kunlua was in trouble, they should help. However, it was still a difficult situation. With Heavenly Bamboo Peak here, it was not up to Yu-yun to act on their own. Xiao, senior brother Xiao Meng, Xengu, who had calmed his mind, had red eyes, filled with hatred and unwillingness. At the same time, Bai Nian and a few other experts from Tian Tong dynasty also landed behind Xiao Meng. "You have already embarrassed yourself, go down." Xiao Meng waved his hand and laughed with interest. Xingu's face sank and he gritted his teeth. Soon after, he suppressed the anger in his heart and stood behind Xiao Meng. "Please forgive me for my poor eyesight, but which disciple of Mount Kunlua are you? I have never been able to tell." Xiao Meng looked at Chu Hen and said, "Isn't that normal? I also don't know him." Chu Hen calmly replied, This is reasonable." Then, Xiao Meng raised his arm, and the corners of his mouth curled into a smile. "Return our things." Everyone simultaneously looked at Chu Hen. In front of this genius whose fame and cultivation were at the top of the victorious eastern state, what choice would Chu Hen make? Whoosh! A beam of white light flashed, and a strange spear immediately appeared in Chu Hen's hand. It had a rhombus-shaped spearhead, and the middle was connected to a spine. It was surrounded by a dark glow like a black flame. Chu Hen held the draining god spear and directly pointed it at Xiao Meng. Just when everyone thought that Chu Hen was going to admit defeat, a few clear and decisive words were spat out. "If you have the ability, then come and take it." Hua! Everyone was astonished. The people from Mount Kunlua secretly shook their heads. This was indeed very Chu Hen, but the trouble in front of them was getting bigger and bigger. The appearance of the draining god spear attracted everyone's attention. This is the draining god Dragonspine spear that is ranked 24th on the St. Tool board? Its aura is indeed astonishing. This person doesn't know what's good for him, right? The draining god spear was originally the treasure of the heaven-ruling dynasty. Even if he obtained it, he can't take it for himself. You're wrong. All the sects have a rule that anything that comes from the ancient desolation heaven domain is ownerless. In other words, any treasure that comes from the ancient desolation heaven domain belongs to those who are capable. 1,000 years ago, it was true that the draining god spear belonged to the heaven-ruling dynasty, but now it has nothing to do with them. It is unreasonable for you to forcefully take it back. Everything in the ancient desolation heaven domain is ownerless. After 1,000 years, any treasure belongs to the strongest. This was an unwritten rule between the big sections. Therefore, Chu Hen had a reason to do this. "If you have the ability, then come and take it." These few words were simple and domineering. Xiao Meng was still smiling nonchalantly. "I have a problem. I like it when people bring things to me and not when I reach for them. Then I'm sorry, I'm too lazy to bring it over." Chu Hen was not afraid. Someone will ask you to bring it over." Xiao Meng's eyes slanted as he suddenly spoke. "Sir Shadowkiller, I have a business deal here. Will you accept it?" "What? Shadowkiller?" Hearing these two words, everyone's heart involuntarily trembled. They looked around as if they were looking for something in the crowd. Seeing everyone's frightened expression, Xiao Meng enjoyed it very much. He continued, "Bring back the draining god spear and you will be a consecrator of my heaven-ruling dynasty. If you take that person's head as well, my heaven-ruling dynasty will give you a land and grant you the title of Marquis, allowing you to control a piece of land. What a generous offer! What generous conditions!" Before he finished speaking, an endless amount of dust suddenly floated in the air. The dust was like snowflakes, emitting a bone-chilling coldness. Whoosh, 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 the sharp and rapid wind pierced everyone's eardrums. It was as if a ghost was moving in the air. A series of afterimages flashed by, and a figure emitting an endless amount of cold energy appeared in front of Xiao Mang. Chapter 796. I'm glad to be of service. The cold voice sounded like it came from the dark underworld. A sword-like chill swept through the entire place and pounced on the crowd. Looking at the cold figure that appeared next to Xiao Mang, most of the people present felt their heartstrings tremble. Many people subconsciously took a few steps back. It's really Ying Sha. I didn't expect him to come. The people at Mount Kunliu are going to be in trouble. Ying Sha. A name that was like a nightmare in the hearts of countless people in the Eastern Victory State. He was one of the top assassins in the province. This person's hands were stained with the blood of countless experts. Nobles, generals, ordinary civilians. The number of people who had died at his hands was innumerable. If the people of the world heard the name of Shadow Killer, they would tremble in fear. Anyone who was targeted by Ying Sha would not be at ease, even if they lived in the palace. No one expected Ying Sha to appear here. No one expected Xiao Mang to do something like this. He offered to assassinate someone on the spot. In fact, in the eyes of most of the people present, it would not be difficult for Xiao Mang to take down Chu Hen with his own strength. However, he did it to prove that the Heaven Dynasty was powerful. If they wanted to deal with someone, they did not even need to do anything. Only the top 10 superforces in the Eastern Victory State would be able to do so. The dignity of the Heaven Dynasty was not something anyone could challenge. Chu Hen, we have to be careful. Shanjin's face was solemn. He said in a low voice, this person has assassinated a level 7 Earth Profound Realm powerhouse. We have to be careful. Assassinated a level 7 Earth Profound Realm powerhouse? The corner of Chu Hen's eyes narrowed. There was a hint of surprise in between his brows. He curiously looked at the person in front of him. The person was not tall and was very thin. His entire body was emitting a blade-like aura. This was definitely a very dangerous person. At the same time, the person suddenly raised his head. 2 rays of light shot out from his sunken eyes. Just one look was enough to send a signal of death. Can we begin? Ying Sha said lightly. Xiao Mang smiled proudly. He raised his hand slightly and said, let's wait and see. Buzz. Before his voice faded away, the dust floating in the air suddenly emitted waves of rhythmic movements. An invisible killing intent surged towards Chu Hen like wind blades. Everyone on Mount Kunlu was startled, and they immediately released their powerful auras, surrounding Chu Hen to protect him. Humph, how audacious. What do you take our Mount Kunlu for? That's right. A mere assassin thinks he can overturn the heavens? Even though Ying Sha's strength was terrifying, the people of Mount Kunlu were not afraid. Hey! What a large force! Shadow Killer smiled frivolously, a hint of a sinister charm appearing at the corner of his mouth. However, you guys better keep your eyes open, heh. However, Shadow Killer did not seem to have any intention of making a move immediately. This was also his usual style. He would first exert pressure, causing the target to fall into fear and panic, and then, when they were unprepared, he would complete the assassination. Once upon a time, the tens of thousands of guards in the Imperial Palace were nothing in front of Shadow Killer. Anyone who became his target would almost never fail. Stand down. Chu Hen's calm voice abruptly broke the tense atmosphere. Everyone on Mount Kunlu was startled, but they saw that there was no trace of panic on Ying Sha's face. Following that, Chu Hen's eyelids lifted slightly, and his deep gaze shot straight into Shadow Killer's emotionless eyes. Their gazes met, and like sword chi colliding, ripples appeared in the air, buzz, buzz. Suddenly, a strange energy wave surged out from the depths of Chu Hen's eyes. Heaven and earth seemed to twist and turn, and the young figure kept growing taller until even his appearance became blurry. On that blurry face, there seemed to be a pair of demonic and cold purple eyes. Shadow Killer's heart trembled involuntarily. In that instant, he felt as if he was facing a fierce tiger, and the dangerous aura coming from Chu Hen's body became even more intense. What's going on? In a split second, Shadow Killer's consciousness flickered, and in the blink of an eye, he suddenly found that his palms were covered in cold sweat. Was that fear just now? As a trump-card assassin, he actually felt fear in front of such a young man. This was really laughable. Not far away, Xiao Mang from the Heaven's Orthodoxy dynasty narrowed his eyes, and he seemed to have noticed something strange about Shadow Killer. However, at this moment, a vast and violent aura suddenly surged over. Ha 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 ha, let me help your Heaven's Orthodoxy dynasty save some resources. Rumble! A thunderous sound accompanied by a piercingly cold wind rushed towards the immortal viewing platform. The expressions of everyone present changed slightly, and they saw 3 tall and mighty figures walking through the air. These 3 people were all more than 2 meters tall, and their clothes were strange. They wore bone jade ornaments. The exposed muscles were especially strong, as if they were made of bronze. It's the Fong clan. Danjun frowned, and a cold glint flashed in her eyes. The violent aura of a fierce beast belonged to the fighting clan, the Fong clan. I am Xiao Mang, and I'm honored to meet the 3 of you. Under normal circumstances, not many people would be willing to deal with the Fong clan, a group of barbarians. However, what the other party said just now made Xiao Mang very interested. The leader of the Fong clan was the tallest and strongest man, and he was almost 2.5 meters tall. He turned his cold eyes and directly pointed at Chu Hen. This person killed our clansman. Whoosh! A surge of cold air stacked up, and the surrounding people all had a strange expression on their faces. This time, the group from Mount Kunlio had really fallen into a quagmire. Heaven's Orthodoxy dynasty, Shadow Killer, the Fong clan and the Sky Bamboo Peak and the Nation of Conquering Cloud, who could declare their position at any time, facing so many experts alone, the situation was extremely grim. It was dangerous. Danjun, Su Lang, Ling Tao, and the other disciples of Mount Kunliu secretly thought of a countermeasure. Senior sister Ling Yan, junior brother Chu Hen. Prepare to retreat, Su Lang said in a low voice. Lin Yuman of the Sky Bamboo Peak, Xiao Mang of the Heaven's Orthodoxy dynasty, and Shadow Killer's cultivation base had reached the 6th level of the Earth Profound Realm. Among the 3 Fong clan experts who rushed over, the leader was probably not any weaker than them. Even if Lin Yuman temporarily did not make a move because of her old relationship with Lung Lingyan, the others were not people they could resist. In the blink of an eye, the situation of Mount Kunlio had become so dangerous. I see. Xiao Mang smiled in understanding. In that case, please go first. Humph. Shadow Killer snorted coldly and said in a warning tone, His life is mine. Who dares to fight with me? The man from the Fong clan mocked disdainfully. I see that you've been standing here for a long time and don't dare to make a move. You should just stand aside obediently. Immediately, the man from the Fong clan ignored Shadow Killer and let out a low roar like that of a fierce beast. Crush his head. Understood, head shamanly. Without any hesitation or nonsense, the style of the Fong clan was simple and violent. As soon as he finished speaking, the other 2 experts from the Fong clan rushed towards Chu Hen one after the other. Their fierce and ruthless aura was like a ferocious beast that had broken through the shackles of its cage, extremely threatening. Roar! Give me your life. They came in a menacing manner, and the smell of blood suddenly rose. The people from the various forces retreated one after another. On the Heavenly Bamboo Peak side, Yun He smiled proudly and rubbed his chin playfully. This is getting more and more interesting. Senior Sister Yuman, what should we do? Chun Ro from the country of Yuyun asked. Lin Yuman did not speak. Her eyes quietly stared at Lung Lingyan, who was standing behind Chu Hen, as if she was thinking about something. The 2 experts from the Fong clan arrived in front of the people from Mount Kunliu in an instant. Both of them exploded with a powerful aura that was comparable to the 4th or 5th level of the Earth Profound Realm. Protect Chu. Before Su Lang could finish speaking, there was a swoosh sound. Chu Hen dashed out like a ray of light. The draining god spear in his hand was swallowing and spitting thick black light, and a piercingly cold spear aura erupted. Heh, you're courting death. The expert from the Fong clan who rushed at the front smiled sinisterly. The veins on his arms bulged, and then his palms rapidly enlarged, growing black fur and sharp claws. Swoosh! The sharp claws raised, leaving a trail of lightning in the air, and went straight for Chu Hen's head. At the same time, Chu Hen's eyes turned cold. When he was less than 3 meters away from his opponent, he threw out the draining god spear with one hand. The ice-cold spear fell straight down, and flew out of Chu Hen's hand at an extremely fast speed. Hiss! A series of blood splattered everywhere. In an instant, the draining god spear directly pierced through the opponent's chest and flew out from the back of the expert from the Fong clan. So fast, the hearts of the surrounding people were all shocked. In the next second, Chu Hen directly swept past his opponent's left side, and then flashed behind him, holding the draining god spear in his hand. A bloody hole the size of a fist appeared in the center of the Fong clan man's chest. But even so, his body only swayed a few times, and he did not die. While everyone was secretly marveling at the strength of the Fong clan man's body, the second expert from the Fong clan, who followed closely behind, had already launched an attack on Chu Hen. "I'm going to tear you apart!" Roar! Accompanied by a furious roar, the second Fong clan man's body quickly went berserk. Towering bloody light overflowed from his body, and his body rapidly enlarged. His violent aura was like that of a wolf and a tiger. However, Chu Hen sneered, and then he leaped up and thrust the draining god spear forward. A violent gale arose, waves of energy surged, and the world seemed to be filled with the roar of a dragon. After that, a ferocious creature seemed to have awakened within the spear light. An enormous black-scaled claw stretched out from the draining god spear, and it carried the might to split the sky as it smashed heavily against the enormous body of the Fong clan man. Bang! Chapter 797. Hiss! An incomparably ferocious black-scaled claw flew out from the tip of the draining god spear and struck the second Fong clan expert's sturdy body with the power to split the heavens. As the terrifying lethality fell, the Fong clan expert immediately spat out a mouthful of blood, and the flesh in front of his body split open. In an instant, he had defeated 2 Fong clan experts in a row, and it all happened in the blink of an eye. The faces of everyone present were moved, and they revealed a look of astonishment. Chu Hen's strength was like a thunderbolt. "Heh, you have some ability. But you still have to die today," the Fong clan expert, strength shaman, who was more than 2.5 meters tall and was the leader of the 3, smiled sinisterly. Following that, his body quickly turned berserk, and a violent aura soared into the sky. His body rapidly expanded, and his body was covered with black fur. His limbs turned into sharp claws, and he looked just like the legendary werewolf Heaven Unified Dynasty, Sky Bamboo Peak, Country of Conquering Cloud, and the ace assassin Ing Sha all retreated. The strength shaman's aura was as strong as Mount Tai, and a dense evil aura surged. He extended his claws towards Chu Hen, and as the huge claws slashed downwards, a black shadow immediately shrouded Chu Hen. What an astonishing evil aura! The faces of the people from Mount Kunliu turned pale. This strength shaman's cultivation had already reached the 6th level of the Earth Profound Realm. For Chu Hen, it was somewhat troublesome. Roar! Immediately after, the draining god spear in Chu Hen's hand once again let out a resonant and high-pitched dragon cry. He sent out the draining god spear with all his might. A peerlessly domineering spear light, like a rainbow bridge, collided with the huge claw that extended over. Boom! The violent impact was like the collision of mountains. The earth shook and the sky darkened. Chaotic quintessential essence spear radiance surged and exploded, accompanied by layers upon layers of whistling air wave. Under the surprised gazes of the crowd, Strength Shaman's huge body actually trembled, and he took 2 steps back, and in comparison, the tiny Chu Hen was as firm as a rock, and he did not even take half a step back. This guy? Everyone was surprised once again, and they were all secretly astonished. Who exactly was this person? Since when did Mount Kunlu produce such a top genius? Who is this person? A disciple from Heavenly Bamboo Peak, asked Chen Ro. I only know that his name is Chu Hen. Chen Ro answered truthfully. Chu Hen? The people of Heavenly Bamboo Peak thought to themselves, in recent years, there hasn't been a young talent named Chu Hen in the victorious East State. It seems like he is indeed a rising star. Hold on. Chen Ro suddenly thought of something and turned to Lin Yuman, senior sister Yuman. When we broke out of the blood tree forest, the weapon that person used seemed to be the blue ran sword. The blue ran sword. His uncertain tone made everyone from Heavenly Bamboo Peak look at each other. The blue azure sword was the symbol of the highest authority in Mount Kunlu. Could it be that this young man was the new sect master of Mount Kunlu? Amidst his surprise, Yunhe sneered and said, if that's the case, Mount Kunlu will suffer a great loss today. Not only will the new sect master die here, even the sect treasure will be lost. Boom! Bang! In the blink of an eye, Chu Hen and Li Wu exchanged 2 blows. The surging waves of qi came one after another, causing the space to tremble uneasily. However, the Liao clan, who were known for their violent strength, could not gain the slightest advantage in front of Chu Hen. Every time they collided head-on, Chu Hen did not retreat, but instead advanced. It seems like apart from being simple-minded, your limbs are not very developed. Chu Hen held the dripping god spear diagonally. His eyes were as bright as the galaxy. Upon hearing this, Li Wu was instantly enraged. He clenched his fists tightly and a majestic, raging aura surged out of his body. Don't be too happy yet, fool! Rumble, the ferocious aura that Li Wu emitted increased exponentially. Today, I'll show you the true power of the Liao bloodline. As soon as he finished speaking, he stomped his foot hard. The ground of the immortal prying platform beneath him immediately crumbled. Li Wu stood on the immortal prying platform like a giant guarding the mountains and rivers. Dense light patterns continuously surged out of his body. Every move he made was filled with power that could shake the heavens. At the same time, Chu Hen suddenly launched an attack. He leaped directly above his opponent's head and raised his left arm. Starlight shone brightly in his palm, releasing the radiant light of the sun. Looking at Chu Hen, who had initiated the attack, Li Wu smiled in disdain. Humph! A mere ant dares to compete with a giant? Scram! Buzz! Li Wu punched upward with a force that could break the heavens. All the spiritual energy in the world turned into a cyclone and gathered at the tip of his fist. Then, he punched toward Chu Hen. Chu Hen was fearless. He held the stars in his left hand and charged forward. In an instant, a dazzling white light screen appeared at the intersection of the 2 energies, and on the light screen was the pattern of the Big Dipper. Bang! A deafening sound shook the heavens and earth. Li Wu's punch, which was filled with surging energy, smashed onto the light screen with the Big Dipper image. The sky lost its color and a shockwave soared into the sky. Even though Chu Hen was like an ant in front of Li Wu, he was as dazzling as the bright moon. Rumble, the space where the giant fist and the light screen met was distorted. Circles of light patterns continuously spread out. Subsequently, Li Wu's feet suddenly sank into the stone platform below him. Countless deep and dark cracks rapidly spread from his feet in all directions. What? Everyone frowned slightly. It was obvious that Li Wu was under immense pressure. They could not imagine how powerful Chu Hen's attack was. The starlight surrounding Chu Hen became even more dazzling. Li Wu's giant body began to sway. Even his knees began to bend slightly. Then, Li Wu's eyes turned red and shot out 2 beams of light. Scram! Rumble! The power of the sixth level of the Earth Profound Realm was released without reservation. Strength Sorcerer's body was like an erupting volcano. At the same time that the light screen between him and Chu Hen collapsed, a meteorite-like explosive force was also released onto the immortal prying platform below. Rubble burst apart, the earth exploded and the heavenly stars exploded. The enormous immortal prying platform was immediately attacked by external forces. The entire stone platform square shook uneasily. The cracks on the ground were like vines that extended wantonly in all directions. Clang! Before Li Wu could attack Chu Hen again, Jiu Zhao's expression suddenly changed. Wind blew and clouds surged. Lightning flashed and thunder roared. The four pillars of light behind the immortal prying platform shone brightly without any warning and emitted waves of intense rhythmic vibrations. What was going on? What was going on? The hearts of everyone present were all startled. Their attention immediately shifted from Chu Hen's body. The four pillars of light became more and more restless. They were like divine rays that connected heaven and earth. Thunderclouds crisscrossed in the sky. It was a majestic scene, giving off a feeling of divine punishment. After that, something even more shocking occurred. The southern sky gate behind the four pillars of light shook uneasily and started to sink at a speed visible to the naked eye. The people from the Heaven Unified Dynasty, Heavenly Bamboo Peak, Mount Kunliu, and the others couldn't help but clench their fists. Their expressions were solemn and cautious. Rumble, the storm came and the earth shook. The magnificent immortal prying platform had been riddled with holes since a long time ago, and it wasn't long before the three enormous doors had sunk into the ground. At the place where the southern sky gate disappeared, a black tunnel that was dozens of feet wide suddenly appeared. Buzz, buzz, chaotic spiraling air currents swirled around the black tunnel. From afar it looked like a mysterious wormhole that appeared in the vast universe. Chapter 798. It's the secret realm of the immortal prying platform. Exclamations filled with excitement rang out, instantly causing a commotion among the surrounding crowd. Buzz, buzz, the nine heavens darkened, and the sky changed color. Incomparably chaotic spiraling air currents rapidly revolved around the four pillars of light that supported the sky. The majestic southern sky gate sank into the ground. Looking at the black tunnel that appeared like a mysterious wormhole in the vast universe, everyone present felt an indescribable feeling as though they were in a dream. Clang! Thunder roared, and it was as if divine punishment was shrouding the area. At this moment, Chu Hen suddenly turned around, and his gaze met Lung Lingyan's. There was a deep meaning in his deep eyes. Lung Lingyan was startled at first, but then she frowned slightly and nodded seriously. Everyone from Mount Kunliu, listen up, Danjun, Su Lang, and the others were shocked. In the next instant, Chu Hen was the first to bear the brunt of the attack. He turned into a stream of light and flew toward the black tunnel behind the four pillars. Follow Chu Hen. Lung Lingyan did not say anything else, and she led the people behind her to follow Chu Hen. The sudden scene caused the people who came from various places to be surprised. But while they were surprised, they were not surprised. It was obvious that Chu Hen was doing this to escape the combined attacks of the Heavens Unified Dynasty, the Liao clan, and the ace assassin. Yingsha, you want to leave? Not so easy. The Liao clan strength shaman, who was closest to Chu Hen, was about to fly over to intercept him when a light and cool breeze suddenly attacked from behind. The air was moved, but there were no fluctuations in the strength of the energy. The strength shaman's eyes turned cold, and he turned around and raised his giant hand. Bang! A muffled explosion reverberated in the air, and a mighty wave of true essence spread out like ripples on the surface of water. Li Wu's huge body and the tall and lithe figure both took a few steps back. Senior Sister Lingyan? Don't worry about me, you guys go first, Lung Lingyan said in a low voice. At the same time, Chu Hen had already arrived in front of the black passageway. Although the passageway was only a few hundred feet wide, it gave off a mysterious and boundless feeling. It was as if there was another unknown land of gods at the other end of the passageway. Without any hesitation, Chu Hen flew into it. Swish, right at this moment, a strong and piercingly cold stream of air assaulted them. 3 blurry shadows were one step ahead of Chu Hen, leaping into the tunnel in front of him. What was that? Chu Hen was slightly startled. Who were those 3 people just now? There was no time to think. The Heaven Unified Dynasty, the Heavenly Bamboo Peak, the Yu Nation, and other forces had already arrived from all directions. Numerous swift and fierce figures were like a flock of swallows that had betrayed their nests, and all of them swarmed towards a single direction. Immediately, Chu Hen activated his quintessential essence defensive shield. Following that, his figure moved and led everyone from Mount Kunliu into the black passageway. Rumble, the aura of desolation that had been sealed for a long time, came rushing at him. The world spun, and the universe turned upside down. It was as if Chu Hen had sunk into a quagmire. A huge suction force was pulling him towards the depths of the area ahead. After roughly counting to 10 or so, Chu Hen directly fell out of a huge nebula vortex in the sky. Immediately, his eyes suddenly widened, and what appeared in front of him was an incomparably vast plain. Swish, swish, swish. At the same time, one figure after another flashed out of the nebula whirlpool behind Chu Hen, and followed Chu Hen as he moved forward without stopping. "Junior brother Chu Hen, are you all right?" the people from Mount Kunliu asked. Before Chu Hen could answer, several piercingly cold murderous auras followed. "Humph, you can't escape. Die." The strength shaman of the Liao clan roared angrily. The eyes of the other 2 Liao clan experts were also scarlet. It had to be said that the physical strength of the Liao clan members was truly terrifying. If it was an ordinary person, Chu Hen's previous 2 spear attacks would have been enough to take their lives. In just a short while, the 2 of them stood up again, exuding a vicious aura. At the same time, the Heaven Dynasty's Xiao Meng revealed a cold smile. "Serene Sha, I hope that before we leave this place, you can hand over someone's head to me. I never do things that disappoint people." Ing Sha replied indifferently. A trace of a demonic smile bloomed on his face. Following that, a slight wave of energy was released from his body. Ing Sha's body actually became blurry and transparent at a speed visible to the naked eye. Following that, he smiled strangely at Chu Hen, who was in front of him. "See you later." In the next second, Ing Sha actually disappeared from everyone's sight, as if he had become one with the air. Death was like the wind, following him like a shadow. Was it the invisibility technique? The people from the various forces all felt pity for Chu Hen. Being entangled by a ghost like Ing Sha, they really couldn't have a moment of peace. Not only was the other party invisible, even his aura was incomparably weak. Even if they were constantly on guard, it was absolutely impossible to guard against him. Being able to assassinate someone at the 7th level of the Earth Profound Realm is indeed not simple. It's better for us to stay away from the people of Mount Kunliu. Ing Sha had already started to make his move. The Liao clan was unwilling to let him go, and the Heaven Dynasty was eyeing them covetously. All kinds of dangers caused the hearts of the people of Mount Kunliu to become increasingly heavy. However, Chu Hen frivolously laughed coldly. "I was wondering what kind of incredible ability it was. So it's just the invisibility technique." The moment these words came out, everyone was stunned. Chu Hen actually wasn't the least bit worried? "Sky Bamboo Peaks Yun," he scornfully mocked. "I don't even know where he gets his confidence from. At this kind of time, he can still laugh." Chu Hen ignored the ridiculing gazes of the people around him, and said to Lung Lingyan and the others, "Be careful. Once things get chaotic, I won't be able to take care of everyone." Lung Lingyan, Shan Zhen, and the others nodded solemnly. Immediately, Chu Hen increased his speed and secretly thought of a way to deal with it. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The people from the various forces kept increasing their speed. No one wanted to be left behind. Mount Kunlia's group was the first to bear the brunt, followed by Heaven Dynasty, Sky Bamboo Peak, Country of Conquering Cloud, and the Liao clan. Although Chu Hen's current situation was escaping, Xiao Mang, Li Wu, and the others weren't chasing him with all their strength. After all, they had just entered this secret realm, and no one knew what the situation was like. Before they knew the situation, they wouldn't act rashly. Everyone understood that the ancient desolate heaven domain wasn't a place to fool around. Of course, the most important point was that in Xiao Mang's eyes, Chu Hen was already a fish on the chopping block. There was no way he could escape. What's in front? An astonished voice immediately caused everyone's eyes to tremble. An ancient city stood in the middle of the vast region. Outside the city gate, a murderous aura filled the air. A strong stench of blood rushed over like a wave from the sea. This murderous aura actually originated from the many ancient stone statues guarding outside the city gate. The ancient stone statues were arranged in an orderly manner, and they were all the terracotta warriors and rattan armored soldiers. At a glance, there were more than 10,000 of these rattan armored soldiers. Each of them was holding a spear, a sharp sword, and a machete. They were like the souls of an undead army guarding this city. Woo! Just when everyone was feeling strange, an incomparably loud bugle resounded through the sky. Following that, the ground trembled and the cold wind howled. The 3,000 rattan armored soldiers actually moved mechanically. Each of their eyes flashed with a strange red light, and an even stronger murderous aura swept in all directions. Kill! Shouts filled the sky. In an instant, the densely packed rattan armored soldiers charged toward the people in front of them like a swarm of locusts. F***CK. Can the stone statues still be revived? Strange things are happening. There are no strange things in this world. All strange things happen because you're too inexperienced. While everyone was discussing, they immediately erupted with powerful true origin energy to meet the terracotta warriors and rattan armored soldiers. After exchanging blows, everyone discovered that the strength of these rattan armored soldiers was very astonishing. Whether it was their offensive or defensive power, they were very strong. Bang! Chu Hen's spear pierced through the chest of one of the stone statues. Rubble flew everywhere, and a hole was blasted open, but the other party was still unharmed. Its movement and offensive power were not affected in the slightest. Then, Chu Hen blasted the other party's head with a punch, but it was still able to nimbly brandish the machete in its hand. Obviously, these terracotta warriors and rattan armored soldiers not only had amazing offensive power, but they also had immortal bodies. Apart from crushing them into pieces, there was really no way to stop them. Bang! Bang! The fierce battle was getting more and more chaotic. This was not what everyone had expected to encounter as soon as they entered. However, there was no other way. If they wanted to move forward, they had to break through this place. Wouldn't it be better for a group of inanimate objects to stay put? The Fang clan's strength shaman's huge body was like a giant. With a punch and a kick, he could crush the rattan armored soldiers into pieces. The Heavenly Imperial Dynasty and Heavenly Bamboo Peaks side were also peerless and unstoppable. Just at this moment, Chu Hen shot a glance from the corner of his eyes, and suddenly discovered that there were 3 peculiar figures in a certain region in front of him. The energy waves emitted by these 3 people were not particularly strong, but they gave off a different feeling. It's them. Chapter 799. Rumble. In the secret realm of the immortal prying platform, the terracotta soldiers and the rattan armored soldiers were blocking the way outside the ancient city. The chaotic battle that broke out between both sides was extremely intense. It was comparable to a battle between 2 armies. Soaring killing intent filled the air and whistled. In the chaotic battle, colorful true origins splashed everywhere, causing the space to be in chaos. At a high platform near the city tower, there were 3 figures that did not seem to fit in with the chaotic battle on this side. The 3 figures were 2 men and a woman. The woman was in her early 20s, and had a youthful air about her. The two men were middle-aged, about 40 years old. From afar, the two middle-aged men were guarding the young woman on both sides like guards. Both of them were looking straight ahead. Their eyes were as sharp as lightning, and their cold aura made people not dare to get close to them. From time to time, there would be a few rattan armored soldiers charging at them. However, before they could even get close, they would be smashed into pieces by the two middle-aged men's powerful palm energy. Who were these three people? A few miles away, Chu Hen was dealing with the attacks of the stone statues while secretly observing the movements of the three mysterious people. He was certain that these three people were the people who had entered the secret realm before Chu Hen. At this moment, Chu Hen noticed the young woman in the middle had actually sat down cross-legged. At the same time, her hands were quickly deducing a series of seals. Subsequently, a series of dazzling runes condensed and transformed from the tip of her fingers. At the same time, she said something to the two middle-aged men beside her. The two of them nodded repeatedly and responded in a low voice. Due to the distance, Chu Hen did not hear the conversation between the three people. However, the young woman's behavior made Chu Hen pay attention to it. It was obvious that these three people knew something about the secret realm of the immortal prying platform. They knew things that others did not know. If he kept an eye on them, he might be able to gain something. It's not a good thing to be lost in thought at this time. Suddenly, a cold voice came from behind Chu Hen. The surrounding Mount Kuan Lu's group was startled. They saw the space behind Chu Hen faintly distort, and then an afterimage flashed out of thin air like a ghost, heading straight for Chu Hen's back. In his stealth state, Shadow Killer was simply too difficult to defend against. He approached them without making a sound. However, right when his opponent launched his attack, Chu Hen suddenly turned around and charged down with a cold and merciless counterattack. Bang! The powerful tip of the spear displayed the might of an army. It tore through the air like a flood dragon emerging from the sea and smashed into the phantom. Ripples of light surged high up in the sky as energy converged and exploded in all directions. How do you know that I'm not deliberately baiting you? Chu Hen sneered coldly. That blurry figure quickly retreated. Shan Zhen, Su Lang, and a few other experts from Mount Kunlun hurriedly rushed over and surrounded it. You want to catch me? You're not qualified. Swish. With that, the afterimage once again turned transparent and quickly merged into the air. Shadow Killer's aura once again disappeared. Shameless thing, what's the use of hiding? Su Lang rebuked. Chu Hen raised his brows slightly and said indifferently, Ignore him. He can't do anything to me. The intense battle continued to heat up. Although these rattan soldiers and terracotta soldiers were lifeless objects, their advantage in numbers and their inability to feel pain still caused quite a bit of trouble. They had to be completely crushed, otherwise they would not die. Very soon, the miserable scene of the outsiders being surrounded and torn to pieces by the stone statues appeared. Blood rained down and minced meat splattered everywhere. The scene was so bloody that it made one shudder. Chu Hen frowned slightly. He had to end the battle quickly. Humans would get tired, but the stone statues would not. The longer the battle dragged on, the lower the advantage they had. Swish! The sharp and ice-cold dripping god's spear pierced through the chest of a stone statue, and came out from its back. Just as Chu Hen was preparing to add another hidden force and shatter it, the stone statue unexpectedly stopped moving. Moreover, its eyes that were suffused with red light also dimmed, and it immediately lost the danger it was in. What? Chu Hen was surprised. How did he get rid of it with a single spear this time? Something fishy was going on. Chu Hen focused his attention and was surprised to find that there was a broken rune on the chest of the stone statue in front of him. The obscure and strange rune was like a pattern carved on it. If one did not look carefully, one would not notice it. And the place where the draining spirit spear had pierced through happened to be above that rune. Could it be? Chu Hen's heart immediately lit up. His figure moved, and he directly flashed to the front of another stone statue. His sharp eyes instantly discovered a rune that was approximately the size of a child's palm under the left rib of the stone statue, Xing. The draining spirit spear moved gracefully and directly sank into the left rib of the stone statue. Even its stone-like body was penetrated, and the rune engraved on it was destroyed. In the next second, the stone statue immediately lost its vitality and fell straight from the sky. With a ping sound, it was smashed into pieces. It really was so. Chu Hen, who had discovered the weakness of the stone statues, was secretly delighted. He turned to Lung Lingyan, Shan Zhen and the rest of the people from Mount Kunliu and said in a low voice, "Listen to me." Everyone looked at him with puzzled eyes. "Find the rune on the stone statues. As long as we destroy that rune, we can kill them." With regards to Chu Hen's words, the people from Mount Kunliu naturally did not have any doubts. Immediately, they no longer attacked randomly. Instead, they searched for the rune engraved on the stone statues and destroyed it. Just as Chu Hen said, once the rune was destroyed, the stone statue would lose its vitality and immediately become a piece of cold stone. In an instant, the people from Mount Kunliu became especially relaxed. With just one or two simple moves, he was able to deal with the stone statue's siege. Heaven Unified Dynasty, Sky Bamboo Peak, and the other powers also followed suit. Under a series of counterattacks, the number of stone statues quickly decreased, and they were all killed. With the pressure reduced, Chu Hen couldn't help but be curious about these runes that could control the movements of the stone statues. Immediately, every time he destroyed a stone statue, Chu Hen would carefully observe and remember the runes on it. But after a series of observations, Chu Hen was surprised to find that the rune patterns on the stone statues were all different. If one were to say that these stone statues were some kind of equipment on the same level, in that case, the runes that controlled their movements should not be too different. However, when a different rune pattern appeared in front of him, Chu Hen didn't know where to start. He was completely at a loss. The more he observed, the more perplexed Chu Hen became. After all, his attainments in the rune technique had reached a certain level. Even if he couldn't grasp many high-level rune techniques and couldn't set them up, he believed that it shouldn't be a problem for him to understand a few of them. However, the runes that he came into contact with right now were extremely strange. Even if he arranged the runes on the dozens of stone statues, it was still very difficult to explain them. Chu Hen inwardly shook his head. The ancient desolate heaven domain was truly a strange place. Boom! Bang! All of a sudden, an earth-shattering shockwave swept out from the city in front of him. Along with the monstrous momentum, the majestic and tall city wall actually collapsed layer by layer. It was destroyed from the inside out as if it was being violently attacked by a landslide. Bang! Bang! Immediately after, the earth trembled. 4 giant stone statues trampled through the city gate and the tall city wall. The sky quickly darkened. Lightning flashed and thunder roared. Strong winds blew. The 4 giant stone statues were all hundreds of meters tall. They were covered in majestic stone armor. One was holding a giant sword, one was holding a halberd, one was carrying a giant blade, and one was holding a giant spear. The powerful and terrifying aura was like that of a giant demon god guarding this place. Feeling the terrifying aura emitted from their bodies, everyone's heart was filled with a strong sense of fear. "Those who offend me shall die." The deep and powerful voice was like a surging river, causing the blood of the crowd to boil. Immediately after, the 4 giant stone statues shook off the dust on their bodies. Like ancient demons that had just awakened, their eyes emitted a bloody glow as they charged towards the crowd. Slaughter! Born for this! The giant holding the stone sword roared and slashed down with his sword, splitting the sky and earth. Boom! The ground split open, rocks flew everywhere, and a huge ravine appeared on the ground. An incomparably strong wind whistled past the 2 sides, and many people were sent flying away. Such a terrifying power! Everyone's faces turned pale. Immediately after, A halberd that was more than hundreds of meters long swept across the sky. A blurry afterimage pierced through the sky like a rainbow bridge. An incomparably long and narrow golden arc of light illuminated the world. Bang! Immediately, more than 10 human experts were caught off guard and were hit on the spot. Each of them spat out a mouthful of blood. One team to deal with one. Heaven Dynasty's Xiao Mang shouted and gave orders to the teams of the major forces. Xiao Mang was obviously referring to Heaven Dynasty, Heavenly Bamboo Peak, Liao Clan, and Mount Kunliu. These were the 4 strongest teams on the surface. As for the others, they were only responsible for support. However, Chu Hen smiled indifferently and turned to the people of Mount Kunliu. Let's retreat first. That's exactly what I mean. Shan Zhen understood tacitly. Bastard, what do you mean? Xiao Meng's eyes turned cold. Chu Hen disapproved and said, Just how stupid are you? All of you want to kill me. Why should I help you? You're retreating now? Don't tell me you want to reap the benefits? You're right. I'll wait until all of you are exhausted, then I'll come and collect your heads. Chu Hen directly retorted and led the people of Mount Kunliu to the back. Without a doubt, everyone else was infuriated by Chu Hen's actions. They immediately felt that they had been cheated by Chu Hen. Publicly retreating at this time would obviously weaken the overall strength of the group. However, Chu Hen was very clear that other than his own team, no one else was trustworthy. Being on the same team as them was nothing more than being cannon fodder. At the same time, many people followed suit and retreated. Not many people were willing to die. Chapter 800. Boom! The city gate was broken and the high walls collapsed. The 4 giant stone statues crushed the city wall like fiend gods, setting off an unstoppable momentum as they charged into the chaotic battle between the outsiders and the rattan-armored soldiers. At this moment, Chu Hen's retreat had provoked the fury of Heaven's unified dynasties, Xiao Mang. Looks like there's no need to let you live any longer. Ingsha, stop him. I'll take his life after I've dealt with these things. From the moment they entered the immortal prying platform's secret realm, Xiao Mang was not in a hurry to take Chu Hen's life. Apart from the fact that he was not familiar with this place and had some misgivings, there was another reason, and that was to let Chu Hen and the others act as cannon fodder at a time like this. After all, the team from Mount Kunlu was quite powerful. In times of crisis, they could share some of the pressure. Once they were used, it would be time to take his life. However, Chu Hen had long seen through Xiao Mang's trick. How could he jump into the pit with his eyes wide open? The fierce battle in front of them broke out in an instant. With the addition of the 4 giant stone statues, the rattan-armored soldiers and the terracotta soldiers launched a fierce counterattack. All kinds of violent forces collided, causing the sky to change color and the clouds to surge. Chu Hen led the group of people from Mount Kunliu and retreated towards the back. At this moment, a bone-piercing cold current swept over, and a pitch-black fog directly pounced toward the crowd. Like a shadow, Chu Hen's eyes slanted, and he swung the draining god's spear in his hand. A piercingly cold and narrow spear arc shot out horizontally, gracefully striking the fog. Boom! Along with a heavy explosion, a dazzling spear ray burst out, and a wisp of almost transparent fog rapidly retreated. Chu Hen thrust out his spear, and the 3-foot-long spear ray was like a lightning shadow. He directly flew out and chased after the fog. Break! In the blink of an eye, Chu Hen had leaped 2 miles away. His entire body was boosted up by his true energy, and the draining spirit spear, which was shrouded in black airwaves, tore through the air and thrust down with the might of a thunderbolt. Bang! A violent vibration was generated, as the spear solidly struck on the transparent misty figure. In an instant, the silhouette exploded like a ball of water, transforming into a myriad of specks of light that melted into the heavens and the earth. Humph! You fell into my trap! The cold voice, along with a strong killing intent, entered Chu Hen's ears. I'm sorry to tell you that you'll be the 1089th profound world realm wuxio to die in my hands. Shadow Killer's tone was especially insufferably arrogant. Buzz buzz. As soon as he finished speaking, with Chu Hen as the center, the surrounding space formed a strange rhythm. A dreamlike distortion appeared in the trembling space, and in the next second numerous crystal walls appeared out of thin air in all directions around Chu Hen. These crystal walls were so bright that they could reflect one's reflection, just like mirrors. Each mirror was tens of meters tall and more than 10 meters wide. In all directions, up, down, left, and right, countless ice crystal mirror walls formed a huge rhombus space body, directly trapping Chu Hen in the center. The crystal rhombus space body, that hovered under the sky, was like a strange palace suspended in the air. It was dazzling and radiant, but it also hid infinite killing intent. In the center, Chu Hen's expression did not change much. He looked at the strange mirrors around him with a trace of surprise in his eyes. Is it hidden in here? Chu Hen muttered to himself. Buzz, then, a figure emerged from one of the ice crystal mirrors behind him. Chu Hen turned around and saw Shadow Killer's figure, which was tens of meters tall, looking at Chu Hen coldly. I call this move Ice Mirror Demonic Palace. Buzz, as Shadow Killer spoke, one silhouette after another rapidly appeared on the other ice mirror walls. In an instant, countless Shadow Killers stared coldly and mockingly at Chu Hen in the center, like the final judgment of the god of death. It was incomparably strange which one was the real one. Chu Hen did not bat an eyelid. His gaze swept across the surroundings, and there seemed to be a purple gleam flashing in his deep eyes. However, if he broke one of the ice mirrors, he should be able to rush out. However, Shadow Killer did not give Chu Hen any time to think. Next, you will know what it means to be powerless. Every Shadow Killer hiding behind the ice mirror raised their arms, and a beam of light spun in their hands. The corner of Chu Hen's eyes narrowed. Without saying a word, he turned into a shadow and rushed out, randomly choosing an ice mirror to attack. Fighting like a cornered beast. Before he finished speaking, the dozens of Shadow Killers in the ice mirrors all waved their arms, and dozens of light beams burst out, attacking Chu Hen. Chu Hen's pupils constricted. These light beams were moving extremely fast, and when he focused, he saw that they were all incomparably sharp crystal spears. Immediately, Chu Hen's dripping god spear shook, and a series of spear lights shot out. Bang bang, the two collided, and sparks and fire rained down. Explosions rang out incessantly, and surging waves of air spread out in all directions. Chu Hen was slightly alarmed. The crystal spear's destructive power was not weak, and if he was hit, it would be a little troublesome. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Before Chu Hen could come up with a countermeasure, wind and rain howled behind him, and nearly 100 crystal spears came flying at him. In a hurry, Chu Hen hurriedly dodged to the side. But just as he flashed into the sky, the ice mirror above his head released a cold, killing intent, followed closely by a dense wave of crystal spears. The rhythm was too fast. Chu Hen immediately put away the dripping god's spear and summoned the blue Rand sword. Whoosh! A dazzling green light bloomed, and the blue Rand sword dragged out a dragon-like sword aura that lingered around Chu Hen's body, transforming into a protective layer of sword chi. Boom! The crystal lances came one after another, like a torrential rain of pear blossoms. At the same time that the lances were shattered, the protective sword chi around Chu Hen's body was also continuously attacked, causing it to distort and sway. Layers of ripples spread out, and before Chu Hen could launch an attack, the area below was once again attacked by a rain of spears. The rhythm of the attacks was almost zero. Under such circumstances, Chu Hen did not even have the time to gather his quintessential essence and release a powerful martial technique. Under the attack of the pear blossoms, Chu Hen could only launch his defense at full speed, constantly transforming into a series of afterimages that moved back and forth in this ice mirror demonic palace. At this moment, The people from Mount Kunlun had solemn expressions. The Ice Mirror Demonic Palace was Shadow Killer's ultimate technique. He had once used this technique to kill 3 experts of the same level. The longer Chu Hen stayed inside, the more dangerous it would be. All of you stay here. I'll go help Chu Hen, Lung Lingyan said in a low voice. She also knew the power of the Ice Mirror Demonic Palace. Too many people would instead cause serious casualties. Before Lung Lingyan could make a move, a powerful gust of wind whistled over. Hey, you want to stay out of this? How naive. The sarcastic voice of the Fong clan's strength shaman came. The expressions of the people from Mount Kunlun changed. They saw the strength shaman rushing towards Mount Kunlun. Moreover, behind the strength shaman there was a huge creature. Its majestic aura was comparable to a mountain pressing down on them. This was one of the 4 stone statues with a huge saber on its shoulder. What is this barbarian trying to do? Su Lang clenched his fists in anger. In the next instant, the stone statue was led by the strength shaman to the people from Mount Kunlun. The huge saber was raised, splitting the heavens and splitting the earth. Hee, this is for you. The strength shaman smiled proudly. His huge body suddenly shrunk rapidly. At the same time, he changed directions and the huge saber of the stone statue behind him slashed towards the people from Mount Kunlun. Retreat. The people from Mount Kunlun retreated to the side. The huge saber fell and split open a gorge on the ground. The soaring air waves rushed towards both sides, and many people felt their blood boil from the shock. This bastard! I didn't expect barbarians to be so cunning. The disciples from Mount Kunlun cursed angrily. However, the scarlet eyes of the stone statue had already revealed a cold glint. It was no longer possible for them to retreat now. At this moment, they could only brace themselves and face the attack. Senior Sister Lingyan, we'll deal with this stone statue. You go and help Chu Hen, Danjun said loudly. Lung Lingyan frowned slightly and hesitation appeared on her pretty face. The strength of the stone statue was definitely not something that Danjun and the rest could deal with. If she left, Mount Kunlun would definitely suffer heavy casualties. However, before they left, the demon-slaying hall master had clearly told them that Chu Hen's safety was their top priority. After a moment of hesitation, Lung Lingyan finally retreated to the side of the people from Mount Kunlun and unleashed a vast amount of true origin energy to attack the stone statue. Senior Sister Lingyan, you don't say any more. Chu Hen will be fine. Lung Lingyan was very clear that if it was up to Chu Hen, he would definitely let her do it. Boom! Bang! Inside the Ice Mirror Demonic Palace. The people who were trapped here could indeed be said to be trapped in the demonic palace. The crystal lances that flew over from all different angles were like 10,000 swords returning to their origin, torrential rain and pear blossoms. The endless flying lances that filled the sky were like the spatial turbulence that shuttled back and forth for thousands of years. Chu Hen, who was isolated and helpless, could be torn into pieces at any time. You've lasted longer than I expected, all the shadow killers said coldly. Whoosh! Whoosh! Chu Hen raised his speed to the limit. Wherever he went, there were traces of afterimages left in the air. Humph! Chu Hen sneered and said disdainfully, this technique of yours consumes a lot of true origin energy, right? You found a weakness? The shadow killer was slightly surprised. I can count to 60 at most. This technique of yours will collapse on its own, Chu Hen replied word by word. The shadow killer's eyes turned cold. Then, he sneered, unfortunately, I won't wait until that time. As soon as he finished speaking, boom! A crisp sound rang out. All the ice mirror crystal walls suddenly shattered in an instant. The dazzling light shards were like shattered glass. The sky was filled with crystal fragments that danced in the air. It was dazzling and dazzling. It actually collapsed on its own? Chapter 801. Boom! The sky was filled with crystal fragments like an exploding star. Just as Chu Hen found the weakness of the Shadow Killer's Ice Mirror Demonic Palace, The opponent actually dispelled the technique. The brilliant light was dazzling and dazzling. Buzz. Quickly after, an extremely sharp huge claw suddenly flew out. Like the hand of a demon god, it grabbed towards Chu Hen, who was in front of him with a crushing force. Don't forget that there's still me." The cold laughter of the Fong clan's strength shaman was heard. Chu Hen's expression changed slightly. Then, he made a sword sign with one hand and a sharp sword force spread out. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The jade-ran sword that revolved around Chu Hen's body transformed into over a dozen bright sword chi in the air. Immediately, they flew in front of Chu Hen and intertwined with each other, transforming into a sword rainbow that collided head-on with the huge wolf claw that was attacking him. Boom! The continuous sword shadows were like a rain of light that struck the giant claw. Space trembled, and the true essence patterns that wantonly splashed out were like flowers falling from the sky, dazzling the eyes of those who saw it. The strength shaman's mountain-like body trembled a few times. The surging power that covered his body kept surging, and the violent energy was like a tide. "Do you still want to fight like a cornered beast? Hee. The chaotic battle caused the sky and earth to become incomparably gloomy. Chu Hen stood in front of the strength shaman's huge body. His deep eyes flashed with a trace of seriousness. He first looked at the location of the shadow killer. The latter once again used the invisibility technique and disappeared into the void. His aura was hidden like a ghost. Boom! Bang! The earth shook and the ground cracked. The battle between the outsiders from various forces and the rattan armored soldiers and the terracotta soldiers became more and more intense. It gradually entered a white-hot state. The 4 giant stone statues were shaped like awakened god guards. Their auras were monstrous and majestic like mountains. Heaven Unified Dynasty, Sky Bamboo Peak, Mount Kunliu, and 2 other experts from the Liao race led the others to surround and attack one of the 4 stone statues. Heaven Unified Dynasty, Sky Bamboo Peak, and Mount Kunliu. All kinds of messy and disorderly powers were released wantonly, turning the entire city upside down. Seeing that the group from Mount Kunliu, led by Lung Lingyan, seemed to be having a hard time dealing with the giant stone statues, Chu Hen frowned. He then shouted in a deep voice, "Look for the rune patterns on its body and attack." The fatal weakness of the terracotta soldiers and rattan armored soldiers were the runes engraved on their bodies. If their characteristics were the same, then that should be the case. "Hey, you'd better take care of yourself." Buzz buzz. In the next instant, the strength sorcerer once again launched a ferocious attack on Chu Hen. His fists and claws were thrown out, and shadows danced in the air. The powerful impact of the attack was undulating, comparable to a storm. Chu Hen's expression turned grave. As he fought against the strength shaman, he extended his perception and was constantly on guard against Shadow Killer's sudden attacks. Chaotic battle of the heavens and earth, piercing rainbow. However, outside of this chaotic battle, there were 3 people who seemed to have nothing to do with it. At the top of a tower near the southern side of the city, 2 middle-aged men with cold temperaments and torch-like eyes stood on the left and right sides of a young woman. Once the terracotta soldiers and rattan armored soldiers approached, they would immediately be shattered by the 2 men's palm energy. The young woman sitting in the middle was not disturbed at all. Her hands were constantly deducing all kinds of strange runes and secret scrolls. Her slender eyebrows seemed to be in deep thought, as if she was calculating something. "This is really strange." The woman pursed her red lips and softly muttered to herself. Then, she opened her mouth and said, "Uncle Gang, Uncle Ko, I still need a bit more time. This technique is much more complicated than I imagined." The 2 middle-aged men nodded. The man on the left said, "Lady Lan, don't be anxious. With your ability, there will definitely be no problem." The woman shook her head. "Uncle Ko, I'm mainly worried that someone will decipher this technique before me and get to it first. Then you can rest assured. In my opinion, those brats from the heavenly bamboo peak still haven't discovered what's going on here." I think that by the time they react, we'll already have that thing. Hearing this, the young woman subconsciously turned her gaze towards the chaotic battlefield. Xiao Meng, Lin Yuman, and the other geniuses were like the bright moon in the sky, displaying their extraordinary demeanor. It's really lively here. The young woman's eyes moved and her voice slightly paused. Then, she indifferently said, "It seems that Mount Kunliu will have to stay here." Boom! At the heavenly bamboo peak, Lin Yuman and Yun, he led the experts from the country of Yu to attack the stone giant with the ancient halberd. This stone giant's attack power was abnormally fierce. The power of the halberd could split the heavens and split the earth. It's about time. Lin Yuman floated in the air and clasped her slender fingers together. She looked up and a chaotic flow of air circulated in all directions. Bamboo Array Palace. Lin Yuman softly spat out a cold and low voice. Chi-chi, in the next instant, the earth split open and jade-like green bamboos broke out of the ground, rapidly growing into the sky. Countless green bamboos formed a bamboo forest, directly surrounding the stone giant in the center. The extremely tough bamboos were like a cage, firmly clamping the stone giant's legs, body, and shoulders. Even the ancient halberd couldn't be moved. The majestic scene was especially powerful. Then, Lin Yuman's gaze swept towards Yun He. The latter nodded and shouted, "Fire bamboo spear! Buzz!" Yun He spread out his arms and a majestic, blazing wave of air rose behind him. Accompanied by the tsunami-like waves, the fiery rain that filled the sky was like a torrential downpour of pear blossoms. Amidst the majestic fiery rain, a huge, sharpened bamboo was like a divine spear that flew from the heavens, traversing the vast sky with a shocking momentum. Boom! A heavy sound exploded on the stone giant's body. A beam of fire directly pierced through the stone giant's chest. It entered diagonally, penetrated through, and shook the heavens. Then, the experts of the heavenly bamboo peak and the country of Yuyun also unleashed their own attacks. Rays of light streaked across the sky and attacked from all directions. They were like a pack of ferocious tigers and wolves. Sword light rained down on the stone giant's body. Boom! In an instant, a multicolored berserk energy surged into the sky, intertwining and tearing at the stone giant in the center. Even though the other party was as solid as a boulder, as if it was made of copper, in an instant it was riddled with thousands of holes, and its body was mutilated. At the same time, on the side of the Tiantong dynasty, Xiao Meng stood proudly under the sky with an outstanding demeanor. He looked at the stone giant in front of him with a judgmental attitude. "All of you, retreat." His voice was filled with arrogance and did not allow for a single doubt. Xen Gu, Bai Nian, and the rest did not hesitate and quickly retreated. Rumble, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled in the sky as dark clouds surged. Xiao Meng stretched out one hand and coldly stared at the stone giant. His voice was like thunder as he shouted, "Flying peak!" As soon as his voice fell, the dark clouds that had gathered in the sky parted, revealing the sun. A beam of intense light shone down. Swish! Accompanied by a piercingly cold wind, 1,000-meter-wide mountain actually tore through the air and came flying over. The heavy flying peak was like a meteorite that had suddenly appeared. The heavens and earth darkened and the space trembled. It pierced through the clouds and smashed towards the stone giant. Ha! The stone giant let out a low roar. It raised the sword in its hands and fiercely swung it at the mountain. Bang! It was earth-shattering and sparks flew everywhere. As the earth shook and the mountains swayed, the stone giant was directly forced back by the incomparably fierce impact. Even the sword in its hands was almost sent flying. Bang! At the same time, Phalai Mountain landed heavily on the ground. Then, the mountain rapidly split open from the middle, and dazzling golden pillars of light blossomed from the crack. The majestic and beautiful scene was like the unearthing of a treasure. From within the mountain peak that was constantly splitting open, an exquisite and gorgeous battle axe slowly rose up. The battle-axe was about a meter long and half a meter wide. It was not very heavy, but it was incomparably exquisite. The patterns carved on it shone with a golden light and emitted intense energy waves. Saint's slicing axe. The people nearby all revealed looks of admiration. Swish! Soon after, Xiao Meng's figure moved. With a wave of his hand, the battle-axe flew out and landed firmly in his palm. Buzz buzz, an endless stream of energy quickly gathered inside the Saint's slicing axe. A thick layer of golden light enveloped its surroundings and rotated. At this moment, even the space around Xiao Meng faintly trembled, emitting a series of uneasy rhythms. One axe to split the heavens, destroy. Xiao Meng shouted loudly and chopped down with a single hand. Swish! In an instant, a divine rainbow-like golden axe shadow traversed the heavens and earth. It was like a stream of light that could trace back thousands of years as it vertically chopped towards the stone giant below. The incomparably sharp sound of the wind tearing apart everyone's eardrums. Everyone only saw a shocking rainbow flash past their eyes. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the golden axe shadow pierced through the center of the stone giant, splitting the mountains and splitting the earth. The stone giant was forcefully split into two halves. What a terrifying power! Many people were shocked by Xiao Meng's strength and secretly sucked in a breath of cold air. Hee, you should be panicking now. Li Wu coldly looked at Chu Hen and sneered. At the same time, Mount Kunliu was also in a state of emergency. The Heaven Unified Dynasty had taken the lead in getting rid of the stone giant. Without a doubt, it had put an even greater pressure on Chu Hen. Still haven't found the location of the pattern? I haven't found it. What should we do? Senior Sister Lingyan. After a round of inspection, there didn't seem to be any fatal patterns on the stone giant like the terracotta soldiers and rattan-armored soldiers. Chapter 802. Use the demon hunting tactic. Seeing that the Heavenly Imperial Dynasty and the Heavenly Bamboo Peak had dealt with the stone giants, the pressure on Mount Kunliu's side immediately increased. Lung Lingyan's eyes flashed with determination, and she immediately gave the order. Shan Zhen, Su Lang, and the others from Mount Kunliu were shocked. A solemn expression appeared on their faces. Senior Sister Lingyan, you? Listen to me. Lung Lingyan's tone left no room for hesitation. The demon hunting tactic was an extremely effective and fast-paced team tactic. It was very effective against powerful opponent. However, its biggest flaw was that the person in charge of the attack was very dangerous. However, Lung Lingyan's attitude had already shown her determination. I understand. Shan Zhen's eyes emitted two rays of brilliance. Soon after, his body moved, and a pair of gorgeous golden wings appeared on both sides of his body. Su Lang, Ling Tao, the two of you are responsible for the left and right wings. Understood. The two of them replied in unison. Swoosh. As soon as they finished speaking, Su Lang and Ling Tao raised their hands and swung out a thick and heavy diamond chain. The iron chains were like aquatic dragons dancing in the air. They quickly shot out and wrapped around the stone statue giant's legs from both sides. The stone giant's strength was as great as a thunderbolt. It leaped into the air like Mount Tai. Both Su Lang and Ling Tao were directly pulled into the air, flying away from where they stood. However, they did not panic at all. They were familiar with this tactic. They did not even need to exchange glances as they grabbed the infinitely long chain and circled around the stone giant's legs. The two chains immediately intertwined and formed a huge shackle that shackled the stone giant's legs. The stone giant roared and swung the huge saber in its hand at the two of them. The sky changed color as the surging saber aura shook the surroundings. However, at this moment, the flowing light wings that Shan Zhen had transformed into charged forward like a beam of light. Screech! When she was less than 20 meters away from the stone giant's head, Shan Zhen also threw out a diamond chain. The speed of the chain was extremely fast. It tore through the air and wrapped around the stone giant's neck twice at lightning speed. Beautiful! A disciple of Mount Kunliu could not help but shout. Danjun's gaze was as sharp as an eagle's. Once she hit the target, she immediately sped up. She drew a blurry afterimage in the air, and quickly circled to the back of the giant stone statue's head. Following that, Danjun grabbed one end of the iron chain tightly with both hands, and all the true inner force in his body surged out like a raging tide. Danjun roared, the veins on her arms bulging. She used all her strength to drag the chain that was wrapped around the head of the stone statue downward, overthrowing 1,000 caddies with little effort. The giant stone statue immediately lost its balance. Its body tilted backwards, and with its legs shackled, its movements were restricted. The giant stone statue was forcefully dragged to the ground by Danjun. Boom! The earth quaked and the mountains swayed. A loud rumble reverberated through the ground as cracks began to spread. Perfect! Danjun clenched her fists in excitement. Senior Sister Lingyan. I've waited for a long time. Lung Lingyan, who had been waiting for a long time, flew high into the sky. At the same time, the rich spiritual power of heaven and earth quickly converged into her body. In an instant, Lung Lingyan felt as if she was in the middle of a storm. Violent energy waves surrounded her from all directions. Swish! In the next second, Lung Lingyan's palm descended like a star falling from the 9 heavens. It swept up an irresistible, majestic force and struck the center of the chest of the giant stone statue. Void destruction palm. Bang! The earth trembled as a surging and mighty palm force swept out in all directions. Sand flew into the air, and a layer of soil cracked. The giant stone statue's huge body trembled, and the ferocious palm force quickly spread throughout its entire body. Under the astonished gazes of the surrounding people, the giant stone statue's body split open into countless densely packed cracks, as if it was a piece of porcelain that had been frozen and shattered. After hitting its target, Lung Lingyan immediately turned into a rebounding force and bounced back. Meanwhile, the rest of the people from Mount Kunliu did not hesitate at all. They continuously unleashed powerful attack. More than 10 resplendent pillars of light attacked the giant stone statue lying on the ground at the same time. Bang! Furious energy waves converged and exploded, sweeping through the earth like a storm. Rocks flew everywhere, and in an instant, the giant stone statue was torn to pieces. Success! The strength displayed by Mount Kunliu caused shock to rise in the hearts of the people from all walks of life. Even the heavenly Bamboo Peaks people from the Heaven Unified Dynasty looked at them with deep gazes. That Lung Lingyan really has some skills, Chen Ro from the country of Yuyun said in a low voice. Lin Yuman, who was at the side, smiled indifferently. Since young, she has never lost to me. Humph! Yun he coldly ridiculed, but you entered the heavenly Bamboo Peak, and she can only go to Mount Kunliu. Bang! 3 of the 4 giant stone statues were killed one after another, and the last giant stone statue wielding a long spear was also forced to retreat under the encirclement of many experts. The combined attack of dozens of people directly sent the giant stone statue flying, and it heavily smashed into the ruins of the city. Following that, the giant stone statue stood up, and its glowing red eyes shot toward the observation platform closest to it. On that high platform, 2 middle-aged men with extraordinary appearances were standing guard beside a young and beautiful figure. From the beginning, these 3 people seemed to be uninvolved, turning a blind eye to the chaotic battle in front of them. The giant stone statue, which had climbed back up, actually waved its huge spear and swept it toward the 3 people on the observation platform. The young woman sitting in the middle acted as if she did not hear it. Meanwhile, the 2 middle-aged men beside her also revealed expressions. The eyes of the one on the left turned cold, and along with a chi-chi sound of restlessness, a silver lightning pattern was suddenly released from his body, rushing thunder palm. Clang! A deafening sound of thunder resounded in the air. That person barehandedly struck out a palm full of lightning to meet the giant stone statue's long spear. The heaven and earth shook, and the aura soared to the sky. The giant stone statue, which was comparable to a mountain, was actually forcibly repelled. As for that middle-aged man, he stood in the same place like a boulder, unwavering. What? Everyone present was visibly moved by his words. Without waiting for the people to recover from the shock, that middle-aged man soared into the sky, and the air around him churned, abnormally surging. The sky above the 9 heavens was instantly filled with thunder clouds, and the biting cold wind stirred the sky. Following that, the middle-aged man raised one hand to the sky, and his 5 fingers closed as he reached toward the giant stone statue. Rumble, in an instant, a lightning beam with a diameter of more than 100 meters descended from the sky, like a divine punishment from the heavens. It set off an endless destructive force that struck the giant stone statue, heavenly lightning bringer. Bang! A dazzling light completely exploded, and a terrifying force poured down. Along with a huge pit on the ground, under everyone's shocked gazes, that giant stone statue was directly smashed into pieces by that lightning bolt. Bang! Hiss! This scene caused everyone to suck in a breath of cold air. Even Heaven Dynasty's Xiao Meng, Heavenly Bamboo Peak's Lin Yuman, and the others revealed a somewhat serious expression. It's the people from that place. Yun He narrowed his eyes and said in a deep voice. Even they came. It seems that there must be an unknown secret here. Heaven Dynasty's Xian Gu solemnly said. What should we do? Senior brother Xiao Meng? Bai Nian softly asked. Xiao Meng's cold eyes flashed with a faint coldness. His gaze swept past the 3 people, and then returned to Chu Hen, who was fighting with the Fong clan's strength shaman. Ignore them first. I'll go and twist that stinking brat's head off first. Swish. Chapter 803. It's someone from that place. Even they came here to join in the fun? Something that can attract someone from that place is definitely not an ordinary item. Looks like the secret realm of the immortal prying platform hides an unknown secret. A shocking bolt of lightning pierced through the sky and easily shattered a stone giant on the spot. The 3 figures on the overlook platform finally attracted the attention of others. After a short moment of surprise, Heaven Dynasty's Xiao Meng took the initiative to make Chu Hen his primary target. He grasped the Saint Cutter axe and swung out a resplendent crescent-shaped axe shadow that carried a biting cold killing power towards Chu Hen. I'm sorry to tell you that there's going to be another corpse here. Boom. Chu Hen's gaze turned cold. With a thought, the blue sky sword that was revolving around him shot out and turned into a powerful sword aura that shattered the axe shadow. The additional corpse is you. Humph, arrogant and conceited. The Li clan's Li shaman sneered in disdain. Then, his body rapidly enlarged and became like the 5th stone giant. He was covered in long brown fur like a huge werewolf. As he spoke, the Li shaman stretched out his arms and a pair of huge palms slapped towards Chu Hen from both sides. Buzz buzz. Waves of air stacked and the airflow in the middle became unusually chaotic. A layer of surging true origin energy covered the Li shaman's palms. This attack had a terrifying aura that seemed like it was going to crush Chu Hen. Let's see how you're going to block me without that sword. Hiss, in an instant, the Li shaman's huge palms directly collided with Chu Hen's position. The space trembled and the sky darkened. However, in the next instant, the Li shaman suddenly let out an angry scream. Everyone was shocked. Along with his scream, a black beam of light pierced through the Li shaman's left palm, blood splattered, and a bloody hole that was 3 to 4 meters wide suddenly appeared. Then, Chu Hen rushed out with the dripping god spear in his hand, displaying his shocking sharpness. A barbarian is a barbarian after all, simple-minded, Chu Hen sneered. Bastard! Li Wu was furious and his eyes were about to spit fire. True Yuan surged outside his body. He opened his left hand and activated his Fong clan bloodline. The bloody hole healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. At the same time, there was a slight flow of air behind Chu Hen. Needless to say, it was Shadow Killer. However, Chu Hen didn't even turn his head back. He left behind an afterimage where he was standing, and his body flew hundreds of meters away. The draining god's spear thrust downwards and attacked Xiao Mang, who was charging towards him. Compared to the invisible shadow killer, Xiao Mang's target was much easier. Roar! The draining god's spear emitted a dense black light, and the roar of a dragon could be heard from within it. Immediately after, an enormous ancient lizard dragon with a pair of wings on its back charged out. It set off a black wave of light that was like a tide as it bared its fangs and brandished its claws as it pounced towards Xiao Mang. Xiao Mang's expression slightly changed. He didn't expect that Chu Hen would actually take the initiative to attack him. In a moment of panic, Xiao Mang placed the holy axe horizontally in front of him. Soon after, the holy axe shone brightly, and a golden light shield immediately appeared around Xiao Mang's body. It was dazzling and dazzling like the sun, golden shield's light. Boom! The ancient lizard dragon extended its claw and heavily smashed onto the barrier around Xiao Mang's body. The shocking scene was like an ancient ferocious creature capturing the 9 heavenly stars. A majestic wave of air swept out in all directions. The ancient lizard dragon was unstoppable as it forcefully brought Xiao Mang down from the sky and fiercely smashed into the ground below. The earth-shaking heavenly star explosion caused the ground to rapidly split apart. Endless rubble and sand simultaneously collapsed, like a volcanic storm soaring into the sky. What? Everyone present turned pale with fright. As expected of the draining god dragon's pine spear. This power is truly terrifying. Too terrifying. No wonder the Heaven Dynasty wants to take back this sacred tool. However, everyone from the Heaven Dynasty looked at each other with surprise in their eyes. Others might not know, but they were absolutely clear that the previous draining god spear didn't reach this level of power. Especially the holy slicing axe that Xiao Mang had, it was also a treasure on the sacred tool ranking. Although it wasn't ranked as high as the draining god spear, it wouldn't be crushed by the draining god spear. The draining god spear had leveled up. The eyes of everyone from the Heaven Dynasty revealed cold intent. It seemed like they had to take back this item that once belonged to them. Boom! Then, the huge crater of rubble below once again erupted with a volcanic eruption. Under the flying rubble, Xiao Mang's expression was gloomy. Spiraling waves of true essence surged up violently. That attack just now didn't cause too much damage to him, but it made him look much more miserable. Very good. His cold voice was filled with dense killing intent. The air was filled with a dense ruthless aura. Over at Mount Kunliu, Lung Lingyan immediately led everyone to provide support. Protect Chu Hen. Yes. However, at this moment, a dozen ghostly figures flashed over and directly blocked the path of Lung Lingyan's group. What's the meaning of this? Lung Lingyan's delicate brows furrowed. Her beautiful eyes were filled with surprise. The person in front of her was not the Heaven Dynasty's group, but Sky Bamboo Peak's Lin Yuman. Lin Yuman's expression was somewhat cold. She looked at Lung Lingyan with a trace of sharpness. I want to ask you something. Whatever it is, we'll talk about it later. Lung Lingyan was slightly anxious. Right now, Chu Hen was fighting 1 against 3, and these 3's strength surpassed Nangong Bai, Lu Fu, and the others. No matter how strong Chu Hen was, he couldn't fight against 3 opponents whose cultivation was 2 levels higher than his. However, Lin Yuman didn't let it go. She ignored Lung Lingyan and asked, back then, when I was selected for the Sky Bamboo Peaks assessment, did you deliberately give your spot to me? You're overthinking it. Your cultivation is indeed higher than mine, Lung Lingyan replied. Is that so? Have you had enough? Make your move. Lin Yuman raised her jade-like hand. Circles of true yuan flowed on her fingertips. At this time, I believe that you won't hold back. Lung Lingyan was instantly enraged. You're still not done. Defeat me, then you can go and save him. Buzz. Lin Yuman didn't say anything else. She directly attacked with a mighty palm aura. Lung Lingyan's expression turned slightly cold. She immediately faced it head-on. As soon as the two made their move, The disciples of Sky Bamboo Peak and Mount Kunliu also drew their swords, releasing a violent and vicious aura. Damn, so what if you're from Sky Bamboo Peak? Chop your mothers. I've long since hated you guys. Do it. Mount Kunliu is just a motley crew. So what if we, Sky Bamboo Peak, look down on you? I'll chop your grandson. Completely unexpected. The people from Mount Kunliu and Heavenly Bamboo Peak actually started fighting for no apparent reason. At the same time, the battle between the other people and the rattan armored soldiers and terracotta soldiers also ended. It's finally over. A bunch of useless trash died. Who are you calling trash? I'm not talking about you. Why are you so anxious? A few of my companions died. I'm not happy that you called them trash. What else can you do? If you're sad, you can die with them. Your ancestral tombs have exploded. I'll kill you, bastard. Do you think I'm afraid of you? All sorts of people started to fight without saying a word. For a moment, the people in various places suddenly became extremely displeased with the people around them. Their restless hearts and violent aura were like invisible air that quickly spread to everyone's hearts. Very soon, everyone's eyes turned red. They started to attack the people around them without any reason. Boom! Bang! The chaotic battle that had just ended not too long ago had once again erupted in full force. The Liao clan, Tian Tong dynasty, Yuyun nation, and other forces all joined the battle one after another. What's going on? Chu Hen, who was fighting with the strength shaman, Xiao Mang and Shadow Killer, had a confused expression on his face. The others seemed to have gone crazy. At the same time, Chu Hen also noticed that the attacks of the strength shaman and Xiao Mang had become much more violent. Shadow Killer, who was hiding nearby, also released a more intense aura. This is... Suddenly, Chu Hen's consciousness flashed and his mind suddenly trembled for a moment. Immediately after, an extremely restless emotion quickly brewed in his body. This emotion came from an unknown place, but it made Chu Hen's hands and feet itch. He had an urge to kill in all directions, such intense hatred and ruthlessness. This ruthlessness affected everyone's mind? The evil aura within Chu Hen's heart grew stronger and stronger. At that moment, he only wanted to release this evil aura and have another great battle. However, the remaining trace of reason allowed Chu Hen to forcibly suppress this restlessness in his heart. Intuition told Chu Hen that he could not be affected by this resentment and ruthlessness. Otherwise, it was very likely that some unexpected changes would occur. The battle between the people from all sides became increasingly chaotic and intense. True essence wantonly flew everywhere. All kinds of powerful martial arts intersected and attacked. The palm force was like a tide, and the sword shadows were like rays of light. It was enough to topple the mountains and overturn the seas. The more the battle went on, the more chaotic it became. Everyone's eyes were bloodshot. However, the three figures on the observation deck outside the city were still standing there like boulders. This technique is really terrifying. I can't suppress it anymore, the middle-aged man who killed the stone giant in one blow just now muttered. The other middle-aged man calmly looked at the people in front of him who were killing in a chaotic manner. Me too. Ripples appeared in his calm eyes, and traces of restlessness and hostility gradually rose. On the other hand, the young woman sitting in the middle was very calm. She sat quietly on the ground with her eyes closed. Her fingers gently moved as if she was feeling, comprehending, and comprehending. Chapter 804. The chaotic battle between the people from the various forces was so intense that the sky was dark and the earth was dark. A formless resentment quickly occupied the hearts of the crowd. It was as if a hand was pushing the crowd to fight and kill each other. Boom! A powerful shockwave exploded in the void. Chu Hen was sent flying backward by the impact. Your attack is too weak. The strength sorcerer of the Fong clan roared wildly like a giant demon. His majestic, monstrous resentment shook the heavens and the earth. Swoosh! As soon as Chu Hen steadied himself, a rapid wind-breaking sound attacked him. A pale palm reached out from the faintly distorted space. In the palm, a sharp crystal spear pierced towards Chu Hen's head like an aurora. The speed was so fast that it was like a spark. Sensing the dangerous aura behind him, Chu Hen tilted his head. The crystal spear brushed past his ear. If he had reacted half a beat slower, the consequences would have been unimaginable. "Is this all you've got? Then I'm really disappointed." A mocking and ice-cold voice came towards him. Xiao Mang's aura was like thunder. He instantly appeared in front of Chu Hen. He raised the holy axe in his hand high and a dazzling light was released. Slash! The magnificent holy axe left a trail of light in the void. It was as stunning as a rainbow bridge, and its radiance was thousands of meters long. Chu Hen immediately used the dripping god spear to block in front of him. He used the middle of the spear to resist. Boom! The dazzling light patterns were like a shower of fireworks. Chu Hen's body shook violently. His arms went numb and he was sent flying again. After a series of moves, Chu Hen fell into a state of only defending and not attacking. The three people in front of him were especially excited. They released the restless resentment in their hearts, and their attacks were especially violent. On the other hand, Chu Hen was continuously suppressing the restlessness within his heart. He didn't allow himself to be disturbed by the resentment. Therefore, under the influence of a series of factors, Chu Hen couldn't perform at his best. "Let's go all out and have a great battle," Chu Hen shouted in his heart. But he kept having the feeling that this was like a trap, like a whirlpool, and once he fell into this glove, he would be swept into the whirlpool. What was wrong? A myriad of thoughts ran through Chu Hen's mind as he scanned the chaotic battlefield. It was as if Lung Lingyan, Dan Zhen, and the others had forgotten that they were currently in a dangerous situation. All of them were engaged in a fierce battle. Could he have been hit by the rune technique? Chu Hen recalled the strange rune patterns on the bodies of the terracotta soldiers and rattan armored soldiers. If someone had set up a huge secret technique here that could affect everyone's emotions, it would indeed cause such a situation. However, Chu Hen was soon puzzled. Why wasn't there any rhythm of the runic energy here? Moreover, the four giant stone statues that appeared later did not have any rune patterns on their bodies. There were no signs of runic power flashing, but the current scene was so abnormal. Just where was the problem? From fighting the stone statue army together to killing each other, Chu Hen suddenly realized that he seemed to have missed something. It's not a good thing to be absent-minded at this time. Xiao Mang's attack arrived once again. He raised the holy slicing axe with both hands. Buzz! A powerful wave of energy gushed out, and the exquisite and nimble holy axe suddenly transformed into a 100-meter-wide sky-splitting axe. Chu Hen's expression changed, and he hurriedly released his majestic true origin energy into the draining god spear. Bang! The piercingly cold spear radiance transformed into a black pillar of light that collided head-on with the earth-splitting sky-splitting axe. Instantly, the sky shook, and layers of mighty aftershocks spread out like ripples on the surface of water, sweeping in all directions. The violent energy was like a tidal wave. Chu Hen relied on the might of the draining god's spear to block such a powerful attack, but the shocking aftershocks still forced him to retreat. However, in the next second, the aura of the Fong clan's strength shaman surged. Roar! The huge werewolf's body shook like a mountain. Then, he looked down at Chu Hen with a pair of huge palms, and a dark shadow immediately shrouded the sky above Chu Hen's head. Chu Hen's eyes turned cold, and he looked up. This pair of huge hands were like the hands of a devil from hell. Buzz buzz, an abnormally powerful wave of energy gathered in the strength shaman's huge hands, and the spiritual power in the world quickly gathered at the center of his palms, instantly forming two balls of energy light waves. Without giving Chu Hen any chance to retreat, the pair of huge hands immediately erupted with two powerful and terrifying shock waves. "Let's end this." Chu Hen's pupils shrank to the size of a needle, and his handsome face was almost transparent under the illumination. Boom! Like a divine radiance piercing through the sky, the violent impact was like a meteor crashing down. Chu Hen, who had suffered such an attack, was like a bird that had been struck, and he fell straight down. The violent energy tore at every inch of his skin, and Chu Hen could not move or struggle. Xiao Meng and the strength shaman attacked one after another. Yingsha's cold and emotionless voice followed closely behind. Finally, I'll send you to a place of burial. Ta! Hell's Yellow Spring Swamp. The cold voice came from the area below Chu Hen. In an instant, an area of 100 feet below him suddenly turned into a quagmire. The dark quagmire stirred back and forth, and a strong wind howled. Within the quagmire, a huge face that looked like a devil suddenly appeared. It had empty eye sockets and a rough outline, and it was especially hideous and terrifying. Just as Chu Hen was less than 100 meters away from the ground, long and narrow streams of mud flew out of the mouth of the huge face in the quagmire, swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The long and narrow streams of mud were like vines, wrapping around Chu Hen's limbs and directly pulling him into the mouth of the Yellow Springs swamp. Bang! The dark black mud splashed everywhere, and the last sound that Chu Hen heard was the cold laughter of Yingsha, Xiao Meng, and the strength shaman. Chu Hen, the appearance of this scene finally attracted the attention of the people from Mount Kunliu. However, it was too late. The swamp rapidly shrank and solidified, emitting a thick aura of death. Enter my Yellow Spring Swamp, and there will be no corpse left. Yingsha laughed proudly. Bang! Powerless, tired, and his consciousness kept blurring. At this moment, Chu Hen only felt that his body had been torn apart, and he could no longer feel the existence of his limbs. It was as if he was falling into a bottomless abyss. A cold and dark feeling filled Chu Hen's surroundings. What followed closely was the endless aura of death. However, at this moment, a light suddenly flashed in Chu Hen's mind. These two lights were like fireflies in the night, weak and eye-catching. I understand now. So that's how it is. In an instant, Chu Hen came to a sudden realization, and he muttered softly, "This is." At the same time, the young woman on the observation deck outside the city suddenly opened her eyes, and the two middle-aged men beside her looked at her expectantly. I understand now. This is illusion. Illusion. In different places, in different situations, the same two words were uttered by two different people. Chu Hen immediately had a feeling of being placed in a hopeless situation. Immediately after, his eyes suddenly opened and within his deep pupils, a demonic purple light surged out. Within his pupils, 4 black round dots quickly rotated and a strange power was released along with it. Illusion break. Boom! A burst of dazzling light flashed in front of him, as if he had woken up from a long dream. Chu Hen subconsciously opened his eyes, and what appeared in front of him was a tall and imposing platform that was as tall as the 5 mountains. Clouds and mist lingered, and it was like a fairyland. On the high platform, there were 4 magnificent light pillars that supported the sky. 4 light pillars, one as hot as fire, one as cold as frost, one as black as ink, and one as pure as a rainbow. The scene in front of Chu Hen was none other than the immortal prying platform from before. And on top of the immortal prying platform, there were many motionless figures. Mount Kunlu, Tian Tong Dynasty, Fong Clan, Heavenly Bamboo Peak, and other forces that came, all seemed to be asleep, immersed in a dream. Astonishment! Absolute astonishment! What a brilliant illusion! Chu Hen kept shaking his head. Looking at the nebula vortex behind the 4 light pillars, Chu Hen felt sincere admiration. It turned out that when the secret realm of the immortal prying platform opened, everyone present was already under the illusion. In fact, they did not enter the secret realm of the immortal prying platform, but were wandering in the illusion. This also explained why the rattan-armored soldiers and terracotta soldiers had messy rune patterns on their bodies. It was just to fool people, to mislead the people in the illusion into thinking that it was some kind of rune technique. Later on, the giant stone statues caused everyone to inexplicably kill each other. In a situation where there was no foresight, only the illusion could accomplish all of this. The ancient desolate heaven domain was really too scary. The illusion just now was too real. Chu Hen felt a wave of fear. If he had chosen to release that ruthless aura, he would probably never be able to walk out of it. Just which senior almighty being could set up such an exquisite and peerless illusory technique? At the same time that admiration arose in Chu Hen's heart, his gaze was filled with anticipation as he looked at the vortex passage behind the 4 energy light pillars. This was the entrance to the immortal prying platform in the real world. However, before entering, there was something else that he had to do. The corner of Chu Hen's mouth curled up into a cold smile. He then looked at the people from the Tian Tong dynasty and Fang clan. He saw that Xiao Mang, Li Wu, and the others were all stunned on the spot, completely defenseless. Although Chu Hen was not a vile person who liked to take advantage of others, he was also not a pedantic person. If he could control them now, it would save him a lot of trouble. However, at this moment, a piercingly cold wind suddenly swept over. Chu Hen was shocked. Before he could react, a dazzling spirit vine flew over and wrapped around Chu Hen's body. Chapter 805. Buzz. On the immortal prying platform, there were 4 pillars of energy that were dazzling. Behind the pillars of light, the entrance to the secret realm of the immortal prying platform was like a starry vortex. The sky was dark and the ground was filled with spiritual mist, adding a touch of dreamy color to the place. When the entrance to the secret realm of the immortal prying platform opened, everyone was already immersed in the illusion. Just as Chu Hen was sighing in admiration at the mysteriousness of the ancient desolate heaven realm and its many changes, Xiao, a sharp wind-breaking sound rang out. A bunch of dazzling spirit vine actually flew out from the inside of the secret realm's passage. Chu Hen, who was unprepared, was directly entangled by the spiritual vine. Then, an irresistible force pulled Chu Hen away from the spot and flashed towards the secret realm's entrance. Buzz, a dazzling white light flashed in front of him. Following that, Chu Hen staggered and almost fell to the ground. Then, a wave of desolate aura that had been sealed for a long time rushed towards him. What entered his eyes was a dark and misty world. This, before Chu Hen could react, a slightly plump figure appeared in front of him. The other party was holding a spiritual vine that was shining brightly. It was obvious that the person in front of him had forcefully pulled him in. Not bad. Although you're a little slower than I expected, you've finally seen through that technique. Without waiting for Chu Hen to speak, that person had already taken the initiative to speak. The person looked to be in his 50s or 60s. He looked at Chu Hen with a smile, giving off a gentle feeling. However, Chu Hen's guard did not decrease. Instead, it increased. He quietly took a few steps back and maintained a distance from the person. "Who are you? Why did you pull me in?" Chu Hen asked in a deep voice. "I saw you dilly-dallying outside, so I decided to give you a hand," the other party said matter-of-factly. Chu Hen was even more astonished. Originally, he thought that he should be the first person to walk out of the illusion. Seems like that was not the case. Although the temperament of the person in front of him was relatively gentle, his entire body was emitting a profound and unfathomable aura. Also, from his tone, it seemed that he had always been paying attention to him. This caused Chu Hen to be even more on guard in his heart. Even so, the gaze with which the old man looked at Chu Hen became more and more satisfied. However, Chu Hen's scalp went numb from the other party's gaze. Why did it feel like he was being targeted by a human trafficker? I didn't expect that a small place like the 100 Kingdoms State would have such a talented junior. 100 Kingdoms State. How did you know? Chu Hen clenched his fists while he frowned slightly. He sized up the person before him once more, and he was extremely sure that he'd never seen this person in the past. The old man didn't answer him directly. He rubbed the strand of beard on his chin and smiled once more. "I'm able to sense the energy fluctuations of the Heavenly Spirit Seal within your body." Heavenly Spirit Seal. It was created by the number 1 Earth Inscription Master in the 100 Kingdoms state, and Chu Hen had inadvertently obtained it while participating in the 1,000 Crane Sex recruitment test. Under such circumstances, not only did the old man reveal Chu Hen's origins, but he'd even spoken of the Heavenly Spirit Seal. Chu Hen's pupils suddenly shook. "You are..." "Exactly." The old man flicked his sleeve and revealed the aura of an immortal. "I'm called West Wind, and people call me Shifeng Zi." Rumble. As soon as these words were spoken, monstrous waves instantly arose in Chu Hen's heart, and he was completely stunned. Shifeng Zi, the creator of the Heavenly Spirit Seal, the number 1 inscription master in the 100 Kingdoms state that had gone missing for over 10 years. He's actually here. What a coincidence. It's simply too much of a coincidence. Chu Hen had some knowledge of Shifeng Zi's deeds. Shifeng Zi was a top genius in inscription master. The various talisman arts he'd left behind were imitated by countless inscription masters in the 100 Kingdoms state. Later on, when he was creating a new talisman art, an accident occurred to Shifeng Zi, causing him to suffer a backlash from the energy of the talismans. Since then, he'd vanished without a trace. The world once thought that Shifeng Zi had perished in the world. On the other hand, the demon suppression platform that contained the 4 great inscriptions in the Mang Mountain Forest was the last clue Shifeng Zi had left behind in the 100 Kingdoms state. Chu Hen was shocked and sighed, and the vigilance in the space between his brows had been greatly restrained. Besides feeling shocked, Chu Hen calmed his mind and cupped his fists slightly. Junior Chu Hen greets Senior Shifeng Zi. Shifeng Zi nodded in satisfaction. "Did you obtain the scroll of talisman arts that I placed in the demon suppression platform?" "Yes, it's here." Chu Hen moved his palm and casually took out a metal piece that was glowing with a green light. Inside it were the various talisman arts of Shifeng Zi. Back then, Chu Hen had relied on the talisman arts inside to conquer Great Firmament City and strengthen the General Alliance. It could be said that Chu Hen owed a lot of Shifeng Zi's kindness. Therefore, Chu Hen had sufficient reason to show respect to him. Shifeng Zi glanced at the metal piece but did not take it. He only asked, "Have you mastered all the talisman arts inside?" "I dare not say that I've mastered all of them, but I can basically set them up," Chu Hen said. "Ha ha ha ha, good, the heavens are really helping me." Shifeng Zi laughed loudly and patted Chu Hen's shoulder approvingly. "Next, you and I will need to cooperate." "Cooperate? What cooperation?" Chu Hen's face was filled with confusion. "Come with me." Shifeng Zi turned around and led Chu Hen forward. Although Chu Hen was puzzled, he still followed behind the other party. Soon, there was no road in front of them. In front of the two was a broken cliff. Endless waves of heat rushed towards them. Chu Hen's expression changed. He saw that below the cliff in front of him was a sea of raging flames. In the raging flames, magma tumbled. It was like the legendary hell of fire. The scorching heat caused the space to distort. Even though Chu Hen's cultivation had reached the 4th level of the Earth Profound Realm, it was difficult for him to ignore the heat coming towards him. However, below them was a sea of fire, but the area above them was a vast expanse of whiteness. The piercingly cold air shrouded the sky, and the sky was filled with flying snow like goose feathers. The bone-piercing cold wind blew from above, and there was a bone-piercing chill. Ice and fire. In front of Chu Hen was a strange world of overlapping red and white, ice and fire. Looking at the scene in front of him, Chu Hen could not help but wonder if he was still in the illusion and had not woken up yet. What a shocking power! Chu Hen shook his head. This is the 4 kills of earth and sky. It is powered by the 4 energy crystal pillars on the immortal viewing platform outside. Shifeng Zi said. 4 kills of earth and sky. Chu Hen narrowed his eyes and asked, "You want to go inside through this formation?" "That's right." Shifeng Zi affirmed. You can't go through by yourself? I'm just a little short, so I hope you can help me fill in this point. Upon hearing this, Chu Hen clenched his fists slightly. While he was shocked, he was also secretly amazed by Shifeng Zi's strength. The dangerous aura produced by the hellish 4 kills of earth and sky was enough to make him shrink back, and he did not even have the courage to go through it. However, Chu Hen did not have the intention to agree immediately. He said, since the power of this formation is powered by the 4 energy crystal pillars outside, won't the formation be automatically dispelled as long as the 4 energy crystal pillars are destroyed? No. Shifeng Zi shook his head and replied resolutely, not only do the 4 energy pillars operate this formation, but they also support the operation of all the runes in the entire immortal viewing platform. If the energy light pillars are destroyed, the entire immortal viewing platform will collapse, and the things inside will be destroyed as well. Chu Hen's eyelids twitched as he looked around and said, "What's inside?" To be honest, this was the main point that Chu Hen was concerned about. In his opinion, it was not a coincidence that Shifeng Zi appeared here, and the things that could interest him must not be ordinary. Shifeng Zi hesitated for a moment before he spat out 4 words in a sonorous voice. Celestial Talisman. Spirit Tree. What's that? Chu Hen asked curiously. It's normal that you don't know. Shifeng Zi did not look down on him. It's said that in the extreme south of this world, there's a sacred place called the Celestial Talisman region, and that Celestial Talisman spirit tree originated from there. This item is a rare spirit treasure in the world, and its miraculous effect is able to cause the Tao tree of an inscription master to undergo a tremendous transformation. What kind of transformation? Chu Hen continued to ask. There's too much to say. To put it simply, it's to shed the mortal body and reforge the immortal body. After listening to Shifeng Zi's simple description, Chu Hen was instantly greatly tempted, and a bright light flickered in his eyes. Shifeng Zi naturally saw through Chu Hen's thoughts, and he said with a smile, however, according to what I know, there's only one celestial talisman spirit tree here, so Chu Hen's heart immediately went cold. Seeing how determined Chu Hen was, it looked like he had no way to compete with him. Moreover, since Shifeng Zi dared to tell Chu Hen all of this, he naturally had the confidence to win. But Chu Hen was no fool. He wouldn't do anything that didn't benefit him at all. Senior, why don't you find someone else? Shifeng Zi was still smiling, as if he'd seen through Chu Hen since long ago. I say, silly kid, if you want benefits, just say it. How about this? Besides the Celestial Talisman spirit tree, I'll give everything inside to you. The secret realm of the immortal prying platform was so mysterious, so it was obvious that the Celestial Talisman spirit tree was not the only spiritual treasure. Even so, Shifeng Zi only wanted one thing, and this was enough to show how attractive the Celestial Talisman spirit tree was. This? What? You don't believe me? Shifeng Zi asked in reply. Not really, Chu Hen lightly smiled. Shifeng Zi was still extremely famous in the 100 Nations province. Although it was rumored that he had an eccentric temper, his negative reputation was still very little. What's that? Junior's friends are still trapped in the illusion. I'm worried about them. No worries. Shifeng Zi directly interrupted Chu Hen's words. That illusion isn't a killing formation. Even if they die in there, they'll only fall into a deep sleep. As long as the illusion is broken, they'll naturally wake up. The worry in Chu Hen's eyes decreased slightly. In other words, as long as the illusion wasn't broken, they wouldn't wake up. In this way, he and Shifeng Zi had enough time to go to the ordinary Celestial Talisman spirit tree. Of course, the prerequisite was that there wasn't a third person who could break the illusion. And right at this moment, Shifeng Zi's expression suddenly changed as he said in a low voice, "Silly kid, you don't have time to consider. Someone else has broken the illusion." Oh? Chapter 806. You don't have time to think about it. Someone has broken the illusion again, and it's 3 people this time. Shifeng Zi's words interrupted Chu Hen's thoughts. 3 people? The figures of a young woman and 2 middle-aged men flashed in Chu Hen's mind. Needless to say, he could guess that it was those 3 people who had broken the illusion this time. Chu Hen did not know much about the origins of these 3 people. However, when he was in the illusion, Chu Hen could tell from the reactions of the people from other forces that the so-called that place was definitely not an ordinary person. They're going to come in. Shifeng Zi squinted his old eyes and glanced at the dark entrance of the nebulous storm-like passage in the sky behind him. Then, he looked at Chu Hen. Without much hesitation, Chu Hen's eyes flashed with determination. "How can I help you?" Shifeng Zi said with a calm and gentle smile. "Triple Shield Phantasm, oh? Triple Shield Phantasm?" Upon hearing these words, Chu Hen's expression changed slightly. This was the most difficult defensive rune technique among the ancient books left by Shifeng Zi. Even if one had the attainments of an Earth Inscription Master, one might not necessarily be able to set it up without the help of external forces. With Chu Hen's current level, he needed a lot of time and the help of external forces to complete this technique alone. Of course, Chu Hen was just an assistant. Shifeng Zi was the leader. "Do you remember the rune arrangement of the Triple Shield Phantasm clearly?" Shifeng Zi gave the final confirmation. Chu Hen nodded solemnly. "I remember." "Very good. Time is of the essence. Let's talk about it as we go, Buzz." As soon as he finished speaking, a majestic Reiki energy surged out of Shifeng Zi's Naiwen Palace. Chu Hen's expression changed slightly. Shifeng Zi's cultivation was much more advanced than when he was in the 100 Kingdoms state. He was likely to have surpassed the level of an Earth Pattern Master and reached the level of a Heavenly Pattern Master. Along with the rhythmic space, Shifeng Zi flicked his fingers continuously. Thousands of gorgeous runes, like fluorescent silver butterflies, appeared outside his body. Dazzling flowers fell from the sky. Chu Hen's eyes were dazzled and he was overwhelmed. The speed at which the runes were condensed was truly admirable. Previously, Chu Hen thought that the speed at which he condensed runes was already considered very fast. But now, he finally understood what it meant by "there is always someone better out there." Buzz, a series of mysterious runes revolved around Shifeng Zi and Chu Hen. Shifeng Zi raised his left hand and stretched out his middle index and ring fingers. 1-star shield. Zing, a slight air wave arose. The thousands of runes flying between heaven and earth seemed to be attracted by a strong force and rapidly approached the center. The gorgeous runes rapidly turned into beams of light and intertwined with each other. In an instant, they formed a spherical light shield with a diameter of about 10 meters. Chu Hen and Shifeng Zi seemed to be in a bubble. Every angle was isolated. Streaks of flowing light swam on the surface of the shield, giving them a very solid sense of security. 2-star shield. Shifeng Zi shouted again in a deep voice and lowered a finger. In the next moment, the thousands of runes on the second layer converged again. Like a flock of butterflies returning to their nest, they intertwined and connected. Then, outside the spherical light shield, there was an additional layer of cuboid protective shield. The cubic shield was like a crystal box. Its diameter was twice the size of the inner circular shield. 3-star shield. Boom. As soon as he finished speaking, the third layer of the shield was formed. A dazzling pyramid-shaped, triangular spatial shield immediately enveloped the outermost area. The 3 great defensive shields could be called an absolute defense. The heat and cold waves of the outside world were blocked. Chu Hen exclaimed in admiration from the bottom of his heart. This was the first time he had personally witnessed the triple mystic shield. He could clearly feel the strength of this defensive rune technique. "Ready, let's go." Shifeng Zi didn't intend to stay any longer. With a cold look in his eyes, he waved his hands like a willow. A light air wave stacked up. Chu Hen only felt that there was nothing under his feet. Immediately, he and Shifeng jumped into the 4 kills of earth and heaven under the defense of the 3-star shields. The scorching hot magma was under their feet. It was as red as the sea. Bone-chilling ice and snow were in the sky. It was a vast expanse of white. It was a dreamlike scene, but it was very real. Whoosh! Just as Shifeng and Chu Hen took a step forward, a dazzling white light flickered in the area behind them. In the next second, a powerful wave of qi rushed over, and 3 figures with extraordinary temperaments appeared in the sky. "Miss Lan, looks like you're the first person to arrive here," the middle-aged man in green said with admiration. The young woman raised her eyebrows. There was a trace of unconcealable emotion in her eyes. "As long as we can obtain the spirit tree of celestial talismans, our mission here will be completed," the other middle-aged man said. "However, this 4 kills of earth and heaven can't be underestimated. Uncle Ko, Uncle Gang, I need some time to set up the defensive rune technique. Help me seal the entrance here. Don't let anyone come in," the woman said lightly. The 2 middle-aged men nodded, indicating that they knew what to do. "We understand." The spirit tree of celestial talismans was a treasure that countless people dreamed of. As far as the 3 of them were concerned, the fewer people that came in, the better. Subsequently, the woman flipped her palm. A beam of light flashed, and a sparkling lotus appeared in her palm. "I'll need you next, 1,000-leaf lotus throne." Buzz buzz. At this moment, Chu Hen followed Shifeng and had already arrived at the inner area of the 4 kills of earth and heaven. Even with the absolute defense of the triple shield, the scorching air wave and the bone-chilling cold flow were still able to penetrate through. Prison of 10,000 flames, 9 heavens of ice and snow. The sea of red magma below caused one's head to go numb, and one didn't dare to take another look. The ice and snow in the sky roared, and the ice crystal snowflakes landed on the top of the outermost triangular shield, quickly forming a thin layer of frost. "Silly kid, don't be too nervous. With me here, you definitely won't die," Shifeng said. The corner of Chu Hen's eye twitched slightly. It seemed like saying such words usually led to accidents. However, Chu Hen had already boarded the pirate ship, and there was no way out. He had to charge forward no matter what. "Senior, I'm fine, I'm not nervous, but you, the Reiki energy fluctuations seem to be a little large. Don't you talk nonsense?" Shifeng glared at him and scolded unhappily. "You don't know how strong the killing earth-heaven formation is. Even if it's me, I won't be able to sustain it for too long with the rate at which my spirit energy is being consumed." "Then do you need my help?" "Not for now. Conserve the Reiki energy now, don't waste a single bit." But seeing Shifeng serious expression, Chu Hen couldn't help but nod solemnly. As they went deeper, the resistance they encountered also increased infinitely. In the world of ice and fire, Shifeng and Chu Hen were like a lone boat in a river. "The storm is coming," Shifeng suddenly shouted in a deep voice. Chu Hen's heart skipped a beat, and there was a lot of seriousness in his eyes. Boom! As soon as he said that, the endless fire territory suddenly rose up into the sky, and magma rose into the sky. Overwhelming airwaves swept over, and monstrous pillars of fire were like raging dragons out of the sea, stirring up the heaven and earth, and pouncing toward the 2 of them. In the sky, the ice whirlwind roared, and countless hailstones fell like a meteor shower, continuously hitting the outer triangular shield. Every impact caused the surface of the shield to shake violently, and layers of ripples appeared on it. In an instant, Chu Hen and Shifeng were directly in the middle of the iceberg and the sea of fire, and there were signs that they would be destroyed at any time. However, this storm was continuous, and not only did it not seem to be stopping, but it also became more and more violent. Suddenly, in the area where the ice and snow intertwined, a bright moon appeared out of nowhere. The bright moon was like a bright mirror, hanging high in the sky, so close that it seemed that it could be reached by stretching out one's hand. Although it was beautiful, Chu Hen knew that its appearance was definitely not a good thing. Buzz! Then, Chu Hen's pupils suddenly shrank, and he saw that the bright moon suddenly burst out a dazzling light. Endless light beams, like the divine rays of the sun, lit up the void. The light beams that blotted out the sky and covered the earth all crashed onto the Three Dipper shield. Chu Hen and Shi Fengzi's figures rapidly turned into two tiny black dots, as if they were swallowed by the light. The extreme light caused Chu Hen's vision to be temporarily affected. About 5 seconds later, the light faded. Chu Hen shook his head, which was not very clear, and looked up again. The bright moon had disappeared, but on the outermost layer of the shield, there were dozens of fist-sized holes. What a terrifying penetrating power! Hiss! Chu Hen could not help but feel a chill down his spine. Fortunately, he had the Tri-Star shield, otherwise, he would definitely be riddled with holes. Senior, steady, Shi Fengzi interrupted what Chu Hen was about to say. The next attack will be doubled, no way? Double the amount? Chu Hen was shocked again. Just now, the first layer of the shield was almost destroyed. How good would it be if the power was doubled? I need to repair the Tri-Star shield. Shi Fengzi paused and then said, Now, you will be in charge of controlling the movement, okay? Without any hesitation, Chu Hen agreed in a deep voice. At a time like this, the best choice was to do as Shi Fengzi said. Use your Reiki energy to control these runes. As Shi Fengzi spoke, he flicked out a few rays of light. Buzz, then, on the left and in front of Chu Hen, a few light patterns lit up, emitting a soft light that flickered between bright and dark. With Chu Hen's understanding of the Tri-Star shield, he did not need much explanation from Shi Fengzi. He was very clear about what to do next. Immediately, a surge of Reiki energy spread out from Chu Hen's Naiwen Palace. Under Chu Hen's control, the Reiki energy was divided into several light beams, which probed and wrapped around the runes. Senior, you can hand it over. Hold it tight. After saying that, Shi Fengzi directly withdrew the control of the runes. The next moment, Chu Hen suddenly felt the pressure, as if he was holding a heavy stone in his hand, and the consumption of the Reiki energy flew up. Chapter 807. Rumble! Buzz! The sea of fire roared, and the ice waves were monstrous. Chu Hen assisted Shi Fengzi, and under the protection of the Triple Dipper shield, they were like a small boat passing through the layers of wind and wave. The scorching magma flames constantly slapped the outermost defensive shield from below and on both sides. The wind and clouds stirred the hailstones in the sky. Under the ever-increasing pressure, Chu Hen did not even dare to breathe, and he carefully controlled the movement of the Triple Dipper shield. At the same time, Shi Fengzi repaired the outermost triangular pyramid shield as fast as he could. Vigorous Reiki energy flowed out of Shi Fengzi's body like a clear spring, and it rushed to the dozens of holes in the outer shield. Under the replenishment of the secret runes, the holes and punctures slowly shrunk and then healed. Seeing that Shi Fengzi had repaired the shield successfully, Chu Hen heaved a sigh of relief. However, in the next second, Chu Hen's face changed. In the area in front of them, a huge bright moon and stars appeared again. The terrifying pressure was like the sun in the sky. This bright moon was suspended above the heads of Chu Hen and Shi Fengzi. It was tens of thousands of feet wide, and the pressure was like facing Mount Tai. Buzz, then, the bright moon once again bloomed with thousands of rays of light. The whole world was illuminated by the aurora, and the endless light directly engulfed the two of them together with the Triple Dipper shield. The extremely penetrating light was comparable to countless sharp arrows shot at the same time. Bang! With a loud explosion, the outermost layer of the pyramid-shaped shield was instantly crushed into pieces. At the same time, Chu Hen could not open his eyes, and he only felt a tingling pain on his skin, as if he was being pricked by dense needles. It was unbearable. After about 10 seconds, the light faded and the bright moon disappeared. Chu Hen opened his eyes, and he could not help but take 2 deep breaths. That feeling just now was really like a brush with death, and the psychological pressure alone was enough to choke him. Don't relax. Shifeng Zi's tone was solemn. The power of the 4 kills of Earth-Heaven formation was much more terrifying than he had expected. Chu Hen exhaled deeply and steadied his mind. The outermost layer of the shield had already been destroyed, and there were many small holes on the second layer of the shield. It was hard to imagine what would happen if he did it again. Shifeng Zi quickly repaired the second layer of the shield and said, "Hold on, we have already broken through more than half of the 4 kills of Earth-Heaven array. How much longer until we get there?" Chu Hen was eager to know the answer. "Soon, but the hardest part is yet to come." Shifeng Zi's expression was solemn. After repairing the second layer of the shield, he conjured a string of runes to strengthen the outer layer of defense. "Do you see those strange whirlpools?" "A whirlpool?" Chu Hen was startled. "Where?" When he focused his attention, he saw that the space in front of him was actually filled with strange grayish-black whirlpools. The largest of these whirlpools was 2 meters in diameter, and the smallest was only the size of a washbasin. Inside each black whirlpool, there were flashes of light that flickered rapidly. Obscure but restless energy waves were released from within, giving off a mysterious and unpredictable feeling. "What is that?" Chu Hen frowned slightly. "Devouring hole, which is also known as a wormhole in the outside world," Shifeng Zi replied. "Devouring hole?" Hearing this name, Chu Hen's eyes immediately surged with an unprecedented seriousness. He had only seen the term devouring hole in ancient books. It was said that when the strength of one's strength reached a certain level, it could tear space and pierce through heaven and earth. Once the space could not withstand the strength and split open, there would be a spatial crack. The so-called devouring hole was formed by the continuous formation of the spatial crack. However, once a human fell into a devouring hole, it would really be beyond redemption. The spatial turbulence within the devouring hole could instantly tear a person into pieces. So, devouring holes really exist in this world. Chu Hen muttered to himself in a low voice. Shifeng Zi glanced at him. "What? You think it's fake?" Chu Hen did not reply. He was still shocked in his heart. Truthfully speaking, in the past, Chu Hen thought devouring hole was more or less an exaggerated description from the outside world. How terrifying would the strength of a person who could tear space apart be? It was really unimaginable. "I'm really a frog at the bottom of a well." Chu Hen could not help but laugh as he shook his head. Seeing this, Shifeng Zi could not help but say, "When the strength of the strength reaches a level where even space cannot withstand it, it can cause space to tear apart." There are also a few types of devouring holes. Some devouring holes will devour everything nearby. Some devouring holes contain some kind of special energy, and it is said that there is a type of devouring hole that connects 2 different spaces that are worlds apart, but Shifeng Zi paused for a moment before continuing. "As long as it is a devouring hole, we must avoid it as far as possible. No matter if it is you or me, we will die upon touching it. Death upon touching it." The last 4 words were spoken with great force. Chu Hen nodded his head seriously, then carefully avoided the danger in front of him. Although devouring holes were dangerous, fortunately, there were not many of them. There would only be one every few hundred meters, and the biggest one was only 2 meters. Even compared to the sea of flames below, it was not threatening at all. Boom! Bang! Just like what Shifeng Zi said, the further they went, the fiercer the impact of the strength they had to endure. Pillars of fire and snow were like ferocious beasts tearing at the 2 of them. The continuous attacks caused the outer layer of the square defensive shield to shake. The thick light curtain was like a bubble that was constantly distorting. The situation was worrying. The Reiki energy of the 2 was being consumed at an alarming rate. Especially for Chu Hen, the Reiki energy produced by the street tree in his Naiwan palace could not keep up with the consumption. At this moment, Shifeng Zi casually handed over a brown pill. "The 3rd storm is coming." Chu Hen was slightly shocked. Without much hesitation, he took the pill and put it into his mouth. In an instant, a surging wave of Reiki energy filled Chu Hen's Niwen palace. Chu Hen could not help but be shocked, and a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. At the same time, Shifeng Zi also put a similar pill into his mouth. "Don't hold back, we must give it our all." Kaboom! As soon as he finished speaking, the clouds in the sky rolled. Along with the vibration of the space that was many times more chaotic than before, a dazzling sun appeared in front of the two of them. There seemed to be a low chanting sound coming from all directions. This was the sound made by the light beam shuttling through the air. The sun was high in the sky, and thousands of divine rays poured down, covering the sky and covering the earth, attacking in all directions. Everything in the world turned into nothingness in an instant. Ice, snow, and fire. Chu Hen and Shifeng Zi, who were wrapped in the triple dipper shield, were instantly engulfed by the hundreds of millions of divine rays. If they had a brush with death just now, it was equivalent to the death god putting a sickle on their necks now. Bang! Chapter 808. Buzz, a boundless destructive aura surged forth. The nine heavens illuminating sun released a myriad of divine rays that blotted out the sky and covered the earth. At this moment, everything in the surroundings seemed to be engulfed by this terrifying light. Snowstorms, magma, flames, and all sorts of energy were reduced to nothingness by this death ray that was comparable to countless divine swords. Chu Hen's pupils rapidly shrank as he stared blankly at the outer layer of the square shield being smashed to pieces. In the next instant, the last remaining layer of the shield was pierced by the sharp arrows. Holes appeared and began to expand rapidly. Subsequently, Shifeng Zi and Chu Hen were engulfed by the endless waves of light for the third time. This was the impact of the death ray. It had the terrifying power to destroy anything. Buzz! Chu Hen's blurry consciousness gradually became clear, and the vast light receded like the tide. From start to finish, only a few seconds had passed. However, to Chu Hen, it was as if he had endured for a century. He was still alive. As Chu Hen steadied his mind, he saw Shifeng Zi continuously casting a series of runes and secret scrolls, repairing the last layer of the shield at the fastest speed possible. "What's that?" Chu Hen was somewhat astonished as he looked at the cloak-like object floating in the air. This cloak flowed and flickered with a brilliant crystalline luster. It was like a giant with its arms open, holding the last layer of the shield in front of it. It was obvious that it was because of this peculiar cloak that the last layer of the shield was not destroyed. "Senior, so you're prepared," Chu Hen said with relief. Shifeng Zi smiled slightly proudly. "Heh, if I didn't have a few treasures on hand, how would I have the nerve to come out and roam the Jianghu?" As he spoke, Shifeng Zi pointed at the cloak and said, "This Luo Yin cloak of mine is a defensive saint weapon forged with tens of billions of precious materials. It can be used as a saint armor, and it can also transform into a shield. It can be used in many ways," Chu Hen smiled. Just as he was about to answer, he saw something from the corner of his eye, and his heart immediately lit up. "Senior, Immortal Talisman Spirit Tree, what?" Shifeng Zi's heart also trembled, and he hurriedly looked in the direction that Chu Hen was pointing. About a few hundred meters in front of him was a steep mountain cliff. Behind the cliff were a few mountain peaks. The mountain peaks stood around the cliff. From afar, it looked like a huge, concave character. At the center of the concave character was a vast platform. At the center of the Tao platform, it was resplendent and dazzling, a deluge of heavenly flowers falling. A strange giant tree that was more than 1,000 meters tall appeared here like a god. The appearance of this giant tree was extremely similar to the Tao tree of the inscription masters. It was similarly bright and resplendent. Every inch of the branches, every leaf flickered with the light of runes. The entire tree seemed to be glowing with the brilliance of the stars and the moon. In such an area, the tree was like the bright moon among the stars, attracting attention. Spiritual mist rose in the sky, lingering around it. Immortal chi floated in the air. Immortal Talisman Spirit Tree. It really is the Immortal Talisman Spirit Tree. For the first time, Shifeng Zi lost his composure in front of Chu Hen. He hurriedly exclaimed, "Hurry, speed up!" "Got it," Chu Hen lazily replied. Although it was also his first time seeing the Immortal Talisman Spirit Tree, he was naturally displeased, thinking that he did not have a share of such a treasure. Immediately, Chu Hen released Reiki energy and controlled the defensive barrier to quickly move forward. As they were about to pass through the four depths of heaven and earth formation, the sea of flames below and the roaring of the ice and snow in the sky quietened down greatly. There was no need to doubt the excitement. "I really have to thank you this time." Shifeng Zi sincerely thanked him. Chu Hen glanced at him with a little disdain. "No need for thanks. You just have to fulfill your conditions." Shifeng Zi found it funny. "I always keep my word. I only want the Immortal Talisman Spirit Tree. Can you please hurry up?" Okay. Don't rush me, okay?" When they were less than 20 meters away from the edge of the cliff, both of their faces were filled with joy. However, at this moment an extremely agitated energy wave suddenly appeared in front of them. "Oh no, stop!" Shifeng Zi's expression changed drastically as he hurriedly shouted. However, it was too late. Without any warning, the circular shield collided with a black vortex that was only the size of a bowl. Boom! Along with a loud explosion, the space trembled violently. The circular energy shield and the Luo Yin cloak that hovered outside were instantly pulverized into powder. Like a burst bubble, Chu Hen and Shifeng Zi were immediately exposed to the air. Rolling heat waves and bone-piercing cold currents surged up and down, followed by a boundless aura of danger. "Go! Quickly go over!" At this critical moment, Shifeng Zi shouted sternly. Chu Hen didn't have the slightest bit of hesitation. With his fastest speed, he used the shaking light movement technique and drew a bright arc of light in the air. He immediately went around the black whirlpool in front of him and swept towards the back of the cliff. Whoosh! Whoosh! The two of them landed at almost the same time. When they turned back, they saw that the flames and ice had already merged together. The world of red and white wantonly stacked up, and the shattered pieces of the Luo Yin cloak were completely devoured like dust. So close, so scary. Is that the power of the devouring whole? Chu Hen's heart was still pounding, and his face was slightly pale. The devouring hole just now was only the size of a bowl, but it was able to instantly shatter the double defense of the shield and the Luo Yin cloak. If he had not reacted in time and was closer to the edge of the cliff, the consequences would have been unimaginable. "Senior, I'm sorry for destroying one of your treasures," Chu Hen said apologetically. Shifeng Zi waved his hand. "It happened too suddenly, so it's normal that you didn't react in time. At that time, just compensate me with a piece of saint armor." "You!" This sentence instantly caused Chu Hen to be speechless. When he heard the first half of the sentence, he thought that Duan Ling Tian was trying to comfort Chu Hen, but who would have thought that the situation would be reversed? "Compensate you with an umbrella. If you didn't keep urging me, would I have hit the devouring hole?" Chu Hen cursed in a low voice. Subsequently, the two of them turned around and looked at the Dao platform in front of them. Both sides of the Dao platform were majestic and imposing, like the mountain gods that guarded the Spirit Talisman Tree. At the center of the Dao platform, the Spirit Talisman Tree towered into the sky. Its branches were luxuriant, and its enormous crown was like a beautiful crystal cloud. Beneath this Spirit Talisman Tree, Chu Hen and Shifeng Zi seemed extremely tiny. A boundless holy aura emanated from it. Shifeng Zi's footsteps were slightly hurried, and his aged face was filled with emotion. The closer he got to the Spirit Talisman Tree, the more he was able to feel the pure and powerful energy emitted by the tree. Subsequently, Shifeng Zi's footsteps stopped. A rectangular white jade platform was placed beneath the tree in front of the spirit talisman tree. 3 items were placed on the platform. Shifeng Zi's eyes lit up, and he was just about to stretch out his hand to take it when Chu Hen's voice sounded from behind.